Simon & Schuster Audio presents Star Trek: The Eugenics Wars Volume 2, The Rise and Fall of Khan Noonien Singh by Greg Cox. Read by Renee Aubergenois.
Captain's Log, Stardate 7004.1. Our diplomatic mission to the Paragon colony on the planet Sycorax has erupted into a full-scale crisis and a potential disaster. Dr. McCoy and I were visiting Sycorax, home to a unique society of genetically enhanced men and women, to assess the full implications of the colony's recent application to join the Federation. Human genetic engineering is, of course, strictly forbidden throughout the Federation, but with humanity being confronted throughout the galaxy by alien races such as the Klingons and Romulans, many of whom are more physically powerful than the average human, Starfleet has quietly begun taking a second look at the potential risks and benefits of modifying human DNA. Unfortunately, upon arriving at the colony, we discovered that Starfleet was not the only organization interested in what Paragon had to offer. A Klingon delegation led by my old adversary, Captain Koloth, has also appeared on the scene, eager to claim the colonists' considerable expertise at genetic engineering. Not surprisingly, Koloth and his men soon wore out their welcome, but not before sabotaging the vital force field projectors that help protect the domed colony from the toxic and corrosive atmosphere of the planet. Captain James T. Kirk looked with concern at Masako Clark, the regent of the Paragon colony. How long can your dome hold up against the pressure without the additional protection of the force field? The regent, a silver-haired Asian woman whose trim and fit physique was a testimonial to the distinct advantages of designer DNA, shook her head ominously. Hours, Captain Kirk. At most. Kirk frowned. Sycorax was a Class K planet, not unlike Venus, with an atmosphere composed primarily of carbon dioxide laced with gaseous sulfuric acid. As if this noxious combination wasn't lethal enough, the atmospheric pressure outside the dome was nearly 100 times that of Earth's. More than enough to reduce even genetically strengthened bones to pulp. Without the dome, Kirk realized, these people were as good as dead. Dr. McCoy, the Enterprise's chief medical officer, stood a few feet away, his medical tricorder still draped over the shoulder of his blue dress uniform. He and Kirk had been enjoying a state dinner with the regent when the disaster struck. "Oh my God, Jim, we have to do something!" Kirk craned his head back to stare at the vast green dome arching high overhead. "Easier said than done, Bones." Like so much of Paragon, the dome was a product of advanced genetic wizardry. It was a living organism whose roots extended deep into the planet's surface. Chlorophyll-based, the immense translucent hemisphere absorbed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere outside, converting it to the very oxygen that Kirk and the others were now breathing. As impressive as it was, the dome still required the reinforcement of a powerful force field. Already large portions of the dome were growing black and discolored, as its living substance succumbed to the pernicious effects of the planet's hellish atmosphere. Kirk had no doubt that Koloth was behind the explosion that had damaged an entire bank of force field projectors. Would Koloth rather see the colony completely destroyed before letting it join forces with the Federation? Kirk decided to contact Mr. Spock, who was holding fort aboard the Enterprise. "Mr. Spock, is Koloth's battlecruiser still in orbit around the planet?" "I'm afraid so, Captain." Evacuation, it seemed, was not an option. Not only was there no time to transport the colony's entire population to the Enterprise, but the continuing presence of the Klingon vessel made any sort of rescue attempt too risky. "Spock, don't even think about lowering the shields long enough to beam me or Dr. McCoy back to the ship." "Understood, Captain." What do you intend to do? I'm not sure. If I think of anything, you'll be the first to know. Kirk out. Lieutenant Seth Lerner, a security officer among the Starfleet landing party, stood nearby and addressed Kirk. Captain, perhaps you and the Regent and a few others should attempt to escape in the shuttle. One of the Regent's people can have my seat. Kirk admired Lerner's willingness to sacrifice himself, even as he rejected the idea. He refused to save merely a handful of lives when an entire population was in jeopardy. I appreciate the thought, Lieutenant, but we haven't quite reached that point yet. But what Lerner said lit up his mind with an idea for action. The shuttle, of course. Because of the colony's protective force field, the landing party had not been able to beam directly to Paragon, but had been forced to ride a shuttlecraft down to the planet's surface instead. The shuttle's shields had been severely tested by Sycorax's turbulent atmosphere. Kirk hastily explained his impromptu scheme to McCoy, Lerner, and the Regent. Lerner, you're with me. Doctor, you stay behind and look after the Regent and her people. Contact Spock, too, and let him know what we're up to. Now, Regent Clark, what's the fastest route to the landing bay? Within minutes, Kirk was steering Columbus 2 from the colony's hangar out into the intense heat and pressure of Sycorax's lower atmosphere. Brace yourself, Lerner. This could be rough sailing. Night had fallen on this part of the world. Outside the enormous green dome, which stretched over a colossal pre-existing crater, the shuttle's high-intensity searchlights exposed a lifeless landscape. Exterior conditions? Lerner consulted the sensor gauges. Outside temperature approximately 470 degrees centigrade. Atmospheric pressure approximately 8,500 kilopascals. Kirk grimaced. Not exactly picnic weather. That was the sort of pressure you'd expect to find at the bottom of Earth's oceans, and more than enough to crush both he and Lerner to crimson specks. Lieutenant, how's our structural integrity? Shields at maximum, sir, but holding. Kirk silently thanked Starfleet Engineering for the quality of their work. If his desperate plan was to succeed, then that same legendary engineering would be tested to the utmost. The Columbus 2 rose until it was nearly a kilometer above the colony, then turned its prow toward the beleaguered dome. Struggling to maintain a stationary position above Paragon, Kirk was alarmed to see that the massive biosphere looked severely injured by its partial exposure to the Class K environment outside the dome. Although a faint blue aura still crackled intermittently over maybe 3/4 of the living dome, indicating that the colony's crippled force field had not yet collapsed completely, a large patch of the dome, at least 2 kilometers across, was blackened and blistered by what looked like a third-degree burn. The ugly discoloration spread outward, consuming more and more of the dome. Charred sheets of gene-engineered cellulose, the size of ships' bulkheads, flaked away from the dome, raining down upon barren lava plains below. Thick green sap boiled and bubbled away, reduced to vapor by the tremendous heat. The damaged tissue threatened to tear apart catastrophically at any moment. Kirk turned to Lerner. Very well, Lieutenant. Let's see if we can perform a little first aid on the Paragon colony. Divert deflectors to the dome. Try to patch the holes in the colony's own force field. As a luminous blue beam shot forth from the shuttle's deflector array, the beam's outer edges intersected with the expanding frontier of the blighted area. Kirk watched to see if the extra shielding had any effect. Had the advance of the burned area slowed? Kirk thought so. The Achilles heel of his plan was that while the shuttle's deflectors remained directed at the dome, the Columbus 2 had to survive the surrounding heat and pressure without any electromagnetic shields. The shuttle's interior already felt like a Vulcan sauna. The best he could hope to accomplish was to buy enough time for someone down in the colony to come to the rescue of the besieged dome. Kirk thought to himself,
Come on, show me just how genetically superior you all are. The colony's command bunker was located 1/2 mile beneath the surface, excavated deep into the bottom of the original volcanic crater that the dome covered. McCoy wondered how long they all could survive here if and when Paragon's big green umbrella burst into flames. Not long enough. When Regent Clark and her top people had retreated to the command bunker to coordinate their emergency efforts, McCoy had been brought along as well. Despite his persistent offers to help in any way possible, he had been politely rebuffed. Guess they figured that there's nothing a plain old ordinary human being with distinctly old-fashioned DNA can do in a crisis. Typical. Although the colonists were hospitable enough, McCoy felt there had always been something faintly condescending about the way Clark and the other colonists had treated their visitors from the Enterprise. Still, he wouldn't wish this sort of catastrophe on a Denebian slime devil. Those blasted Klingons. Why can't they ever take no for an answer? He watched wide-eyed as the emergency team bombarded the Regent with constantly updated information on the developing crisis, every one of her advisors casually displaying unbelievable powers of comprehension and memory. God help me. It's like being trapped in a bomb shelter with a dozen or so Spocks. Clark betrayed no trace of hesitation or indecision. Pump more nutrients and growth hormones into the dome. Starve every garden, orchard, and lily pond in the colony if you have to. The Regent didn't seem to have much faith, McCoy noted, in Captain Kirk's plan to reinforce the colony's shield with the shuttlecraft's deflectors. Suddenly, a wild idea occurred to McCoy. Snatching up his Starfleet medical bag, he rushed across the bunker. Madam Regent, do you have any cordrazine? Clark gave him a blank look. The doctor lightly slapped his forehead with his free hand. Of course not. It wasn't developed until after your ancestors, the original Paragon colonists, left Earth. Cordrazine is a powerful stimulant, which, coupled with the right anabolic steroids, promotes tissue growth and healing. In theory, a large enough dose of such a compound might be enough to accelerate the dome's own natural recuperative abilities. He hastily checked the contents of his medical bag. Blast! All I have is about 150 milliliters. He needed a lot more cordrazine than that for a patient the size of the dome. But Clark seized on his idea eagerly. If you have a sample, Doctor, that's all we need. We can quickly design an organism to produce the cordrazine you speak of, then use our industrial cloning tanks to reproduce any quantity you require. McCoy handed a loaded hypospray to Clark, who quickly dispatched a messenger to deliver the sample to the appropriate laboratory. Stationed in front of a coral monitor, an excited colonist beckoned to her leader. Regent Clark, it's the dome. The morbidity rate has slowed by nearly 72.091%. The damage has stopped spreading. Almost. McCoy laughed out loud. It's Kirk! By God, his plan is working. He's actually pulling it off. Kirk kept his sweaty palms wrapped around the throttle of the Columbus II to keep the shuttle hovering where it could do the most good. Forget Vulcan saunas. Right now, the shuttlecraft's sweltering cabin felt more sizzling than a horta in heat. It was ironic in a way. Recently, he had been researching the infamous Eugenics wars of Earth's late 20th century, the better to understand the promises and potential pitfalls of human genetic engineering. Back then, he recalled, humanity had nearly been destroyed by the likes of Khan Noonien Singh and his megalomaniacal siblings. Now, nearly 3 centuries later, he and Lerner, 2 standard model humans, were risking their lives to save another batch of allegedly superhuman men and women. Kirk heard Lerner gulp dryly. Captain, look, the dome! A kilometer below, the injured region of the dome suddenly began to repair itself. Fresh green tissue billowed outward, displacing charred and blackened cellulose. Intuitively, Kirk knew that Dr. McCoy was responsible.
Good work, Bones. That's what I call a house call.
While he was sharing a grin with Lerner, abruptly the portside wall of the cabin crumpled inwardly.
Attention. Hull integrity compromised. Repeat. Hull integrity compromised.
As a fountain of white-hot sparks erupted from the panel, Lerner yanked his hands back from the deflector controls.
Captain, we've lost the deflectors.
Kirk stared at the freshly healed area upon the dome. For the time being, the dome seemed capable of defending itself.
Lieutenant Lerner, prepare for emergency beam out. Right through that big green doorway.
The only escape route available to them was the one part of the dome still unprotected by a force field.
5 seconds to structural collapse.
As the familiar static tingle of the transporter beams swept over him, Kirk considered the weak spot in the colony's force field. In a way, it was not unlike another dangerous wound in a planet's defenses. The gaping hole in Earth's ozone layer that Khan Noonien Singh first discovered back in the 1980s. The hole Khan later turned to his own advantage. "170 feet above the concrete launch pad, Roberta Lincoln crawled out onto one of the horizontal swing arms of the towering rocket gantry. Her target, an Ariane rocket primed for takeoff. Just to play it safe, she clipped one end of a safety cord to the metal grating beneath her, keeping the other end securely attached to her belt. Roberta briefly wondered what kind of bribes and extortion Khan had employed to get his hands on the Ariane, let alone transport it to Mororoa Atoll. The remote launch site in the South Pacific had been previously occupied by the French government's now-defunct nuclear testing program. From her lofty perch upon the gantry, Roberta spotted the lights of the Mission Control Center nestled amidst the lush tropical flora. Let's just hope they don't spot me. The last thing I need right now is a reunion with that smug so-called Superman. It was June 1992, and she and Seven had their hands full coping with the crisis in Bosnia, not to mention all the other international mischief stirred up by Khan and his genetically engineered siblings. This had not made her and Seven's primary mission, preventing World War III, any easier. Roberta scowled and glanced toward the horizon, glimpsing a faint rosy tint where the sky met the Pacific. The Ariane was scheduled to launch at dawn, so Roberta knew she had to act quickly. She took out her all-purpose servo device cunningly disguised as a silver fountain pen. After switching the servo to laser mode, she began cutting a hole in the side of the rocket. She gave the melted metal a few minutes to cool, then carefully lifted the newly created circular segment away from the rest of the rocket, revealing the intricate circuitry beneath. Then she reached carefully into the electronic innards of the Ariane satellite launcher. The high-voltage jolt caused her entire body to stiffen in shock. A moment before she lost consciousness, she thanked heaven for the safety cord binding her to the steel platform. At least she wasn't going to fall to her death.
She's waking up, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Joaquin. The second voice was familiar and confirmed Roberta's worst expectations. Blinking, she opened her eyes to see a tall Indian man looking down at her with an amused expression on his strong, handsome features. He was clean-shaven, with thick black hair tied neatly behind his head, and he wore a spotless white Nehru jacket with matching cotton slacks.
Ah, Miss Lincoln. How good of you to rejoin us.
She raised herself to a sitting position.
Hello, Khan. Long time no smirk.
Looming a few feet behind Khan, A large, muscular brute named Joaquin glowered at Roberta. "You will address His Excellency with more respect." Khan dismissed his henchman's concerns. "Ms. Lincoln and I are old friends. Isn't that so?" "In a manner of speaking," Roberta admitted silently. She had first met Khan Noonien Singh 18 years ago in a vast underground laboratory hidden beneath the scorched sands of India's desolate Thar Desert. Khan had only been 4 years old then, one of hundreds of genetically engineered children produced by the top-secret Chrysalis Project. Even after she and Gary Seven had shut down the Chrysalis Project, they had kept careful track of Khan and the other super kids now scattered throughout the world. Impressed by Khan's obvious brilliance and potential for good, Seven had even made a determined effort to recruit the teenage Khan into their own covert peacekeeping operation. But that bright idea had backfired spectacularly. In the end, Khan had proved too ambitious to keep under control, and he had turned against her and Seven, in the process stealing all their information on the Chrysalis kids. That was 3 years ago, and Khan had already rounded up several dozen of his super smart and super strong siblings, including Joaquin here, and enlisted them in his grandiose campaign to save the world by placing it under his complete and total control. "What's up with the close shave, Khan? The last time I saw you back in '89, you were sporting a respectable-looking beard. I thought that was mandatory for all male Sikhs." Khan smiled, stroking his smooth and stubble-free chin. "Very good, Miss Lincoln. I applaud your cross-cultural erudition. With all due respect to my heroic Sikh ancestors, I eventually came to the conclusion that I should not be bound by the traditions of the past. I am a new breed of human being, after all, a new and superior kind of warrior." "I see, Khan, that you're still as humble as ever. Frankly, I always kind of hoped that your delusions of grandeur were just a phase you were going through, something you'd grow out of eventually." "Hardly delusions, Miss Lincoln? Or have you forgotten how easily I have eluded you and the enigmatic Mr. Seven these past few years?" True enough. Using data stolen from Seven's advanced Beta 5 computer, Khan had even found a way to protect his strongholds against transporter technology. Just to reach Mururoa, Roberta had needed to teleport to another island several miles south, then brave the treacherous currents and coral reefs in an outrigger canoe until she came close enough to the forbidden atoll to jump overboard and scuba dive the rest of the way, dodging sharks and moray eels as she swam to shore not far from the rocket launch pad. "Imagine our disappointment, Khan, when we found out what you were up to here. Even Seven never thought you'd go this far." Khan's face hardened. "Seven has always lacked vision. The problems of the world require bold, decisive action, not timid, cautious half measures of the sort you and Seven specialize in." Roberta didn't back down. "We put out fires, you start them. That's a big difference as far as I'm concerned. Fire can be a transforming force, Miss Lincoln." Khan strode across the office to answer the intercom upon the desk. "Khan here. What is our status?"
"We're about 10 minutes from launching, sir."
Roberta's heart sank. She hadn't prevented the rocket's launch. Stepping away from the desk, Khan stared down at her like an adult scolding a wayward child. "You should have remembered that you were dealing with an intelligence deliberately engineered to exceed your own. Anticipating sabotage, I had the foresight to booby-trap the Ariane's guidance systems against any interference." As he marched towards the office's only exit, he instructed Joaquin to bring her. The bodyguard dragged her out the door, and a short flight of steps later, they arrived upon the roof of the Mission Control building. The sun was newly risen. Khan threw out his arms expansively. "Welcome, Ms. Lincoln, to Chrysalis Island." A small cluster of people had gathered atop the roof to witness the launch of the rocket.
Launch minus 2 minutes.
Khan's associates eyed her with varying degrees of curiosity. "Permit me, Miss Lincoln, to introduce a few of the brilliant minds that I have assembled upon this island. This is Dr. Liam McPherson, a superlative astrophysicist and the head of launch operations." Khan moved on to an exotically beautiful woman, strikingly clad in a silken indigo sarong and matching top. "And this is the most exquisite Ament, one of my wisest and most trusted advisors." Gleaming black pearls, native to the Tuamotu Islands, shimmered upon the graceful Egyptian woman's earlobes, the nacreous beads as dark and lustrous as her shoulder-length black hair. Cool amber eyes looked Roberta over silently. Roberta disliked her on principle. "Nice pearls." "Thank you. They were a gift from Khan."
Launch minus 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have liftoff.
Almost against her will, Roberta tipped her head back to follow the rocket's meteoric ascent. While Ament led the rest of the onlookers, excepting Roberta, in a round of polite applause, Khan's flawless profile remained turned to the sky. "Ah, Lucifer, child of the morning, how thou art risen." Lowering his gaze at last, he savored Roberta's crestfallen expression. "I trust, Ms. Lincoln, that you appreciate the full purpose and potential of my morning star, my bringer of light." "You stole the technology from us, remember?" Khan held up a finger in correction. "A technology that Seven and I personally acquired from the ageless Dr. Evergreen, and not without considerable effort and hardship." Roberta knew what Khan was referring to. It had been that ill-fated mission back in the winter of 1984 that had finally convinced Gary Seven that the precocious Sikh youth was too reckless and ruthless to be trusted. He seemed just like his mother, the late Dr. Sarina Kaur, founder and driving force of the Chrysalis Project. Kaur had been utterly ruthless too, and fanatical enough to choose death rather than abandon Chrysalis. Roberta couldn't help wondering if Khan had ever figured out that she and Seven had been indirectly responsible for his mother's tragic demise. Probably not a good time to bring that up, she thought. Khan gave Roberta a parting bow. "We will have to continue our reunion later, Ms. Lincoln. The bard once wrote, 'Unbidden guests are often welcomest when they are gone.' But in your case, I'm inclined to enjoy your company a while longer." He reached into the pocket of his immaculately pressed white slacks and retrieved a familiar silver instrument, her servo. "I look forward to chatting with you about the many singular technologies at your superior's disposal. Perhaps the ever-manipulative Mr. Seven will be willing to share his secrets in exchange for your continued good health. Joaquin, put her in one of the holding cells on level M2. Roberta paid close attention to her surroundings as Joaquin forcibly escorted her down several flights of stairs. Precisely 4 floors beneath the sunlit rooftop, they passed what looked like a sturdy metal airlock bearing the universal symbol for biohazardous material. "Genetic Testing and Development," read the heavy block letters on the airlock's exterior. The sudden whoosh of air escaping from the doorway announced that someone was preparing to exit the biolab. Stalling in order to see who it might be, Roberta deliberately tripped over her own feet. The airlock door swung open, disgorging a statuesque Indian woman in a stained white lab coat. A shudder ran through Roberta as she saw the horizontal black lines bisecting both of the woman's dark eyes. The inky streaks across her corneas were, Roberta knew, legacies of the chemical disaster in Bhopal many years ago, created when the Indian woman had squinted to see her way through the clouds of poisonous gas. There could be no doubt. This was Dr. Poulan Dasal, a Nobel Prize-winning biochemist who, like Khan, was also a product of Serena Kaur's illicit experiments back in the 70s. Her presence provided the final proof that Khan was up to hardcore genetic hanky-panky here in the South Seas. Roberta thought to herself, I need to report this to Seven pronto. Joaquin did not prolong their chance encounter with Dasal. Within moments, they descended even further into the bowels of Khan's new outpost to a stark white hallway lined on both sides with detention cells. Joaquin tugged open the door of the nearest cell and unceremoniously thrust Roberta inside. She languished in the cell for half an hour or so, time enough for McPherson and his staff to place Khan's so-called morning star into a low polar orbit where it could do the most harm. Only because she was listening for them did Roberta hear the stealthy footprints in the corridor outside her cell. The air stirred, and the unblinking red lights atop the security cameras went dead. Moments later, a solitary figure appeared on the other side of the door. Roberta tapped her foot impatiently. About time you got here. Near the city of Chandigarh, in the Punjab of northern India, armed guards patrolled the high sandstone walls surrounding Khan's fortress. Khan had modeled it, at least above ground, on Agra's fabled Red Fort, built by the great Emperor Akbar over 4 centuries ago. They are ready for you, Your Excellency. Khan checked his reflection in the full-length mirror adorning his private dressing room. Although still in his early 20s, he accurately judged that he carried himself with the confidence and style of a true world leader. He stepped past Joaquin, his faithful bodyguard, into the marble corridor beyond. Stationed every few meters, Khan's elite guards, composed entirely of genetically engineered specimens of superhumanity, snapped to attention as he approached them. The corridor led to an open courtyard awash in sunshine. It was a glorious day in northern India, the sky as blue as the Hindu god Krishna himself. The towering reddish-brown fortifications, over 30 meters tall, enclosed a sprawling complex of pavilions, courtyards, pools, and gardens. Yet this was only the tip of the iceberg. The true nerve center of Khan's growing empire lay beneath the opulent citadel, hidden from the world's view, not to mention the prying eyes of orbital satellites and whatever other resources Gary 7 might have at his disposal. Khan quickly left the imperial apartments behind him and arrived at his destination, a domed sandstone building that was the fortress's official meeting hall. The exquisite Ament, clad in a purple silk sari, met him beneath the shadow of a festooned archway. All is in readiness, Lord Khan. Our guests await your arrival. What of my dear American friends? He was referring to Gary 7 and his irrepressible handmaiden Roberta Lincoln, whose unexplained escape from her cell on Chrysalis Island remained a frustrating and perplexing mystery. Ament was in charge of internal affairs, including domestic security and intelligence. A sly smile lifted the corners of her lips. The Lincoln woman is reportedly in Bosnia, attempting to prevent that attack you engineered on the United Nations peacekeeping force. An excellent distraction, Lord, just as you intended. Confident that neither Roberta nor her aged superior would interfere with today's agenda, Khan entered the building, followed by both Ament and Joaquin. He did not hesitate before striding out into the larger chamber beyond. He found himself facing a room full of high-ranking diplomats and military officers from throughout southern Asia and the rest of the world. Scanning the assembled dignitaries, he was gratified to see that even the federal government in New Delhi, which stubbornly refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of his reign in northern India, had deigned to send a representative to this conference. Welcome, honored guests. I am Con Nunyan Singh. A mere 9 years before the dawning of a new millennium, the Earth is a planet still beset by the same grievous ills that have plagued humanity since the beginning of recorded history. War, famine, persecution. In short, esteemed guests, the world cries out for a savior, for one powerful sword to slice through the Gordian knot of all the Earth's tangled and intractable woes. I am that sword. Welcome to the capital of the New World Order, the Great Khanate, that even now spreads beyond the walls of this fortress to embrace and envelop all of long-suffering humanity. Predictably, it was the delegate from New Delhi who objected first. This is absurd. I cannot speak for the rest of the world, Mr. Singh, but the Sovereign Republic of India is a democracy, and I certainly don't recall voting for you. Despite your grandiose claims, you are nothing more than a common bandit or gang leader. Casually, almost imperceptibly, Khan nodded at Joaquin, who nodded back in understanding. Without hesitation, the brawny bodyguard reached for his belt buckle, and from its brass bear's head drew forth a razor-edged throwing knife. Joaquin hurled the blade at the Indian delegate with preternatural force and accuracy. The knife struck its target between the eyes and buried itself up to its hilt in the man's skull. The ambassador died instantly. The other delegates bolted from their seats and raced for the exits at the back of the auditorium. With the touch of a button, Khan sealed the doors. He let the frenzied diplomat struggle for a moment more, the better to recognize the utter impossibility of escape before drawing his P-226 handgun from its holster. Anxious eyes turned away from the exits, back toward the commanding figure at the podium. Please return to your seats. We have not yet concluded today's business. I regret what has just transpired, but those who defy my authority do so at their own peril. A blank expression on his face, Joaquin trudged to the ambassador's body, retrieved his throwing knife, then went back to the stage. Khan fixed a steely gaze on the cowering assembly. I have numerous followers placed in capitals and corridors of power throughout the world. Every one of them is ready and willing to kill on my command, no matter how highly placed or well guarded the target. To Khan's surprise, one of the surviving delegates rose to challenge him. Khan recognized him as the adopted son of a celebrated American scientist and explorer, now a prominent Calcutta statesman. You may kill me, you may kill everyone here, but you cannot cut the world's throat. Joaquin snarled, but Khan held up his hand to curb any immediate reprisals. He admired courage. You are mistaken, sir. I can, if necessary, cut the entire world's throat. As he tapped out a command upon the podium's built-in control panel, on a screen behind him appeared a photograph of an artificial satellite in orbit high above the Earth. Behold, Morning Star, named after Lucifer, the bringer of light. For it is light itself that is my ultimate weapon. Ultraviolet light. Many of you are no doubt familiar with the hazardous effects of ultraviolet light, including skin cancer, cataracts, blindness, even genetic damage. Earth's primary defense against UV radiation from the sun is the ozone layer. Live footage of swirling clouds and wind currents taken from a much higher altitude appeared on the screen. Much of the picture was colored green, indicating the presence of atmospheric ozone. But there was a much darker region at the center of the image, like a yawning void or cavity. This is the infamous ozone hole above the Antarctic. first discovered in 1985 by, among others, myself. The top-secret technology at the heart of my Morning Star satellite was originally developed to repair any holes in the ozone layer. That same technology can also be deployed, however, to tear open new gaps in the ozone layer, as I shall now demonstrate. Keying in a password known only to him and no other, Khan initiated a pre-programmed sequence that sent a command to Morning Star, now in orbit above the Antarctic. On the screen, the yawning gap in the ozone layer grew in size, its amorphous borders spreading outward to consume yet more of the protective vapors. As programmed, Morning Star ceased its assault on the ozone layer after exactly 5 minutes had transpired. Khan did not let his guests enjoy any momentary release from anxiety. At this very moment, the ozone hole above the Antarctic is now 20% larger than it was less than 5 minutes ago. Now imagine another vaporous rent equally vast, appearing in the ozone layer directly above each of your respective nations, exposing your populations, livestock, and crops to lethal levels of ultraviolet radiation. With Morning Star under my exclusive control, I can easily target individual regions, or, as a final deterrent, destroy Earth's entire ozone layer in a matter of hours. Death, disease, and starvation would soon follow, on a scale not seen on this planet since the extinction of the dinosaurs. Be reassured, I have no desire to bring about such a doomsday scenario, but know that I can do so, and surely will, if any military attempt is made to depose me. He fixed the assembly with a stern and unyielding stare. I charge you, make this crystal clear to your superiors. If I fall, the world falls with me. He pressed a button upon the podium. The doors holding his audience prisoner were now unlocked. The shaken delegations filed out of the auditorium until only he, Joaquin, and Ament remained. Ament, ever thoughtful, offered Khan a glass of water.
Was it truly necessary to kill the Indian ambassador?
Lady Ament, I could not risk being perceived as a paper tiger, all show and no real threat.
If you say so, Lord Khan.
Khan suspected that she remained not entirely convinced. But if Ament is reluctant to spill blood, he thought, that only makes her counsel more invaluable. I have assassins aplenty. It cannot hurt to have a more forgiving voice at my ear, even if sometimes, as today, that voice must be ignored. Immortality on ice. Visit the heavens without ever dying. In his San Francisco office, Walter Nichols fiddled with the latest cryosatellite designs while trying to come up with the right advertising slogan for his proposed new business venture. The ad campaign had to strike just the right note. Convincing terminally ill people to have themselves frozen and launched into space was going to be a tough sell at first. To his surprise, the door to his office swung open, and 3 strangers walked in uninvited. In the lead was a clean-cut young man wearing an Air Force uniform. The Air Force officer flashed a piece of ID before Walter's eyes. "I am Lieutenant Sean Christopher, United States Air Force. Are you Dr. Walter Nichols?" Walter nodded nervously. "My apologies for barging in like this, Dr. Nichols, but I'm afraid I have to ask you to come with me." Without further explanation, Lieutenant Christopher led him to the helipad on the roof of the office building. Minutes later, they were in the air, with Walter strapped into one of the rear seats next to Lieutenant Christopher.
I don't suppose you can tell me where we're going.
A hint of a smile appeared on Lieutenant Christopher's unlined 20-ish face.
Not really, Doctor. Officially, it doesn't even exist.
The helicopter took them to a nearby airbase, where Walter was hurried onto a waiting jet. A short flight later, Walter stepped off the plane onto the tarmac of a narrow runway stretching across a desolate-looking desert valley. A Jeep Cherokee was parked to one side of the runway, along with a driver wearing military fatigues and a holstered handgun. Walter clambered into the back of the Jeep with Lieutenant Christopher, and the Jeep headed toward the rugged granite face of a nearby mountain. After passing through several security checkpoints, each guarded by soldiers armed with machine guns, they arrived at a large hangar door built directly into the side of a hill. Walter's apprehension had grown with each succeeding barrier.
Where the heck are you taking me? Area 51?
He thought he was joking. Christopher presented his credentials to an electronic scanner. As the hangar door rolled upward, Walter saw a paved, well-lighted tunnel leading into the heart of the mountain. He was briskly marched through a confusing maze of interconnected hallways. He was half convinced they had walked all the way back to San Francisco when Lieutenant Christopher opened a door that bore the cryptic designation F-34. Walter found himself in an ordinary conference room. Two unfamiliar faces regarded him from the far end of a table. An older man who looked to be in his 70s, plus a younger woman wearing civilian attire. The older man came around the table to shake Walter's hand.
Ah, Dr. Nichols, how good of you to join us. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Carlson, chief mad scientist around this place, and this is Shannon O'Donnell.
O'Donnell was an attractive red-haired woman in her mid-30s. She rose to greet Walter. "A privilege to meet you, Dr. Nichols." Carlson explained to Walter.
Shannon is an engineer like yourself, not to mention a prospective astronaut on loan from NASA, and of course you've already met Lieutenant Sean Christopher. Like Shannon, Sean has a great career ahead of him as an astronaut and space pilot. I fully expect him to be the first man on Saturn someday.
NASA? Saturn? Walter was getting more baffled by the moment.
Could somebody maybe explain what I'm doing here, and where here is, for that matter?
Carlson blushed and smiled sheepishly.
Please forgive all the cloak and dagger theatrics. Welcome to the Groom Lake facility, better known to the tabloid writers as Area 51.
Walter's jaw dropped. He'd heard of Area 51. It was supposed to be the U.S. government's top-secret storehouse for captured alien artifacts and entities. Carlson allowed Walter a minute or two to recover. Then he delivered his second bombshell.
How much do you know about the so-called Roswell incident of 1947?
Walter almost choked.
That's true, too?
Carlson nodded soberly.
I was there. An alien spacecraft crashed in the desert outside Roswell, New Mexico. 3 intelligent extraterrestrial beings were taken into custody by the United States Army, who assigned me the task of studying them. For better or for worse, the aliens escaped within days of the crash, taking their damaged spacecraft with them. I've spent the last 46 years studying the data we collected during those brief historic days back in '47. Plus whatever other evidence of alien visitations that the government has located over the last few decades.
Walter felt like he'd somehow been sucked into a Spielberg movie.
But I have to ask, what does any of this have to do with me?
Carlson glanced at O'Donnell.
Shannon, do you want to take this one?
The red-headed engineer glanced quickly over her notes before launching into her spiel. Our primary goal here at Project F is to design and build the prototype for a new generation of manned spacecraft, incorporating everything we've learned from the Roswell crash and similar incidents. And we want to take advantage of your recent research into cryonics. Walter sat up straight, startled.
How do you know about that?
Lieutenant Christopher feigned a sinister leer.
We have our sources. The important thing is that cryonics is a major part of Project F.
Our prototype, the DY-100, is intended to be a sleeper ship capable of traveling vast distances to the stars while its crew and passengers remain frozen in suspended animation. Carlson looked at Walter cheerfully.
So, what do you say, Walter? Are you with us? We can definitely use a mind as ingenious and imaginative as yours.
Walter began thinking that there were bound to be commercial applications to the technology being developed here. Somebody had to keep an eye out for such opportunities, if only for the sake of the average American consumer.
Well, when you put it like that, Dr. Carlson, how can I refuse?
Three months later, in Chandigarh, India, Khan held a summit in a bomb-proof bunker several levels below his palace. His honored guests were seated around a conference-sized teak table. Khan himself stood at the head of the table. He took a moment to survey the gathered faces. These were his far-flung brothers and sisters of the Chrysalis Project, whose superior minds and bodies had brought them, despite their relative youth, to positions of prominence throughout the world. They were an extraordinarily diverse lot. A Balkan dictator, a Somalian warlord, an exiled Chinese superwoman, the self-proclaimed prophet of a millennial cult, and the commander of an American anti-government militia. They seemed to have little but enhanced DNA in common, but Khan was confident that he could unite his scattered siblings under a single banner for the betterment of humanity. Vasily Hunyadi, a ruddy-faced Romanian who had lost one eye in the bloody civil wars consuming the former Yugoslavia, seemed impatient to get down to business.
Why have you called us here? I have a war to fight.
Khan was aware that Hunyadi had been accused by UN observers of practicing genetic cleansing in the areas under his control, yet he appreciated Hunyadi's directness. Khan also desired to cut straight to the heart of the matter.
You have all seen the documentation I sent you establishing irrefutably our unique kinship. I am proud to call you my brothers and sisters. Individually, we have each accomplished much. Imagine now what we can do together. It is within our grasp to reshape history and grant to the world a new golden age.
Elijah Jugurtha Amin, a stocky African man who was one of the most powerful warlords battling for control of the famine-stricken nation of Somalia, eyed Khan with open distrust.
Under whose rule? Yours? Sounds suspiciously like a new world order to me. Like you might be planning to bulldoze Lady Liberty beneath a load of utopian hogwash.
General Randall Hawkeye Morrison was the only American at the table. Large mirrored sunglasses hid the militia leader's eyes from the others at the summit. He chewed habitually on a piece of gum as he tipped back upon his chair. Standing at Khan's right hand, Joaquin reached for his ursine belt buckle, but Khan discreetly raised a hand to forestall any immediate attempts to punish the American for his defiance. These were not, after all, inferior politicians and government functionaries of the sort who could be easily cowed by an unexpected act of violence. These were his peers, superior beings like himself, who had to be dealt with on an entirely higher level. Khan bowed his head with as much humility as he could muster, then spoke. In the Iliad, the great poet Homer states wisely, "A multitude of rulers is not a good thing. Let there be one ruler, one king. I see myself as the head of our alliance, but rest assured that each of you will have a voice."
What's he talking about?
Khan pressed on, raising his voice to be heard.
Can you not see that a single unified authority is needed to bring order to the world's tragic state of affairs?
Hunyadi, the Balkan dictator, sneered derisively.
I cannot speak for the rest of the world, but there will be no more conflict in Eastern Europe once we have driven the genetically unfit from our land. Leave that to me.
Amin seconded Hunyadi.
There will be peace in Somaliland, too, but only after I defeat my enemies, including the heinous American occupying forces.
The caustic laughter came from an attractive Chinese woman sitting across the table from Amin. Exiled from her own country after Tiananmen Square, Chen Tijun had founded a separatist matriarchal colony on a remote island off the coast of New Zealand, attracting like-minded women from all over the world.
Just like men, your answer to everything is conquest and oppression. Trademark patriarchal thinking.
Brother Arcturus, founder and sole prophet of the Panspermic Church of First Contact, urged patience.
As all truly enlightened souls are aware, the evolution of the human race is an eons-old experiment being conducted by higher intelligences originating in the Orion system, who long ago seeded the Earth with their own cosmic DNA. I would not be surprised if the so-called Chrysalis Project was all part of the grand design.
Pulling out his chair, Khan made a point of sitting down at the table in a civilized manner.
Let us not waste this historic opportunity by pitting our remarkable talents and intellects against each other.
Amin remained unmoved.
Ideology is for fools and weaklings. Only power matters. What can you offer me?
Khan welcomed the opportunity to extol the resources at his command.
Besides a secure power base, I have access to military technology, both offensive and defensive, that exceeds anything else on Earth, including the U.S. Pentagon's newest and most closely guarded toys. All this and more I promise you, if you will but swear allegiance to me.
Hawkeye Morrison peered at Khan over the top of his sunglasses.
Whoa there, Kubla Khan. I'm not above a good old-fashioned horse trade, exchanging tech for intelligence and vice versa, but I'm sure as hell not going to be part of any internationalist conspiracy to compromise the God-given sovereignty of the United States, not to mention free men and patriots everywhere.
Chen Tijun drew herself up indignantly.
Free men, you say? And what of free women, who are forever oppressed, regardless of politics and philosophies?
Morrison tipped back in his chair and snorted in derision.
I'm sure as shooting not going to take my marching orders from some puffed-up Maharaja.
It required all Khan's superhuman self-control not to smite the insolent American on the spot. Instead, he watched and listened in dismay as the meeting degenerated into a babel of bellicose voices. Then, one by one, the preeminent progeny of the Chrysalis Project exited the bunker, leaving Khan alone to contemplate the wreckage of his vision of unity. The summit could have gone worse, he concluded with mirthless humor, if Gary 7 had dictated the agenda. What now was he to do? He clenched his fist. He would not permit his treacherous kinsman to subvert the monumental task to which he had been born. The great Khanate would extend its blessings over all the peoples of the world, even if it meant doing battle against legions of his own kind.
Let there be war.
Khan went to the lowest level of his palace and entered the control room for the Morning Star satellite. He had hoped never to use Morning Star's ozone-destroying capabilities, but that was before his fellow supermen revolted against him. On a touchpad, he keyed in the numerical sequence required to gain entry to the control booth. He sat before the control panel, which was dominated by a large red button beneath a transparent sheet of unbreakable plastic. An illuminated map of the world stretched above the control panel. A blinking green dot tracked Morning Star's location as the satellite orbited continuously above the planet. Khan rested his hands upon the controls and swiftly entered the final command code into the computer.
Command authorization approved. Please select target.
He stared balefully at the illuminated map. Hunyadi, the one-eyed Romanian war criminal, possessed the largest power base at present. Let him serve as an example. Khan's dark gaze zeroed in on the territory currently controlled by the Serbian government. He fed the appropriate coordinates into the targeting computer and watched in satisfaction as on the glowing map the Serbian possessions acquired a damning crimson hue.
Target selected. Please stipulate operational parameters.
It was in Khan's power to choose the precise degree to which the ozone layer was devoured above Hunyadi's domain. He was not in a merciful frame of mind. He typed in 100%.
Parameters selected. All systems armed and ready.
On the control panel, as the clear plastic shield slid away, Khan's right hand drifted inexorably toward the waiting red button. This was the final firing mechanism that would signal Morning Star to begin its deadly work. A concerned voice interrupted.
Lord Khan, what do you think you are doing?
Khan spun around in the chair to find Ament standing in the open doorway. Ament was the only other person to whom Khan had entrusted the command codes for Morning Star, in the event that he was killed or incapacitated during a sneak attack. Her cool temperament, thoughtful manner, and incorruptible conscience made her the ideal custodian of the satellite's apocalyptic power during any such emergency.
Your tread is admirably light, Lady Ament. I did not hear you approach.
She stepped fully into the control booth. Her amber eyes found the luminous map, noting the telltale red stain spreading over Serbia.
My lord, it is not Hunyadi who will suffer the most, but the hapless men, women, and children under his rule. Can you not find a more precise, more surgical means of striking out? A scalpel rather than a flamethrower?
Khan winced inwardly at this undeniable truth. It would be enormously satisfying to press that red button, to inflict vengeance of biblical proportions upon his enemy. However, as Ament suggested, perhaps a truly superior ruler would rise above such a temptation. Finally, he pressed the cancel command upon the control panel.
Targeting sequence terminated. Aborting procedure.
Ament bowed.
You have chosen wisely, Lord Khan.
With a heavy sigh, he rose to follow his sagacious, if sometimes inconvenient, advisor out of the control room. He vowed that Hunyadi would pay. On the Isle of Arran, off the coast of Scotland, Gary Seven stood upon a winding hillside trail, looking out over the rolling farmland below. The isle, along with the rest of Earth, bore little resemblance to the distant world where he had been born and reared, a highly advanced cosmopolitan planet. Yet he had few regrets. Earth and humanity were well worth the years he had spent striving to ensure their survival. At times he had been tempted to head back to more civilized quarters of the galaxy, delegating affairs on Earth to able lieutenants such as Roberta. But how could he leave Earth, the planet of his ancestors, with the likes of Khan still running amok? Seven pivoted slowly upon his cane to see Roberta trudging up the hill toward him. Several paces behind her, a wisp of white smoke rose from the chimney of the refurbished stone farmhouse that now served as their headquarters. Because they had intelligence that Khan was trying to locate them, he and Roberta had reasoned that when you have a transporter, you can set up shop almost anywhere, even a quiet Scottish island. Seven noticed a sheaf of papers beneath Roberta's arm.
What do you have there?
Today's New York Times, hot off the Beta 6. Seven glanced at the front page. PLO and Israel accept each other after 3 decades of relentless strife, read the banner headline across the top. Seven was encouraged by the news. Lower on the page, a less hopeful headline informed him that U.S. troops fire on Somalis. Death toll may reach 100. The situation in Somalia was being exacerbated by the power-mad ambitions of one of Khan's super siblings. With luck, he thought, Amin will be taken out of the picture by either the Americans or one of his fellow warlords. "What about Khan, Roberta?" Her face grew somber. "Ominously quiet at the moment. Our spies suggest that he's regrouping after the total failure of his Superman summit in June. He had some dealings with Morrison's militia in the States, exchanging info and technology, but mostly he seems to be gearing up to defend himself from all the other would-be Napoleons out there. Things are particularly frosty between Khan and Hunyadi, who are wrangling over Turkestan. I wouldn't be surprised if that particular Cold War gets real hot real soon." Sadly, Seven had no reason to doubt Roberta's dire reading of events. Almost 20 years after he destroyed Serena Kaur's underground laboratory in Rajasthan, it seemed that her chrysalis project was still casting a long shadow over world affairs. In his darker moments, he almost wished that he had let the budding children of chrysalis be incinerated along with their creator. I mustn't lose hope, Seven thought. Perhaps Earth can still escape the sort of eugenic madness that destroyed so many other civilizations. But good thing I have a backup plan, just in case. Chiseled out of the granite hillside by generations of ancient monks and artisans, the enormous cave temple at Ajora in central India took Khan's breath away. Its venerable exterior was generously adorned with intricately carved friezes depicting picturesque scenes from Hindu folklore and mythology. Unsurprisingly, Joaquin was too concerned with Khan's personal safety to appreciate the splendor before his eyes. The cool white beam of his flashlight searched for hidden snipers.
"It's too quiet, Your Excellency. It could be a trap."
It was now nearly 3:45 in the morning, and Khan and his party appeared to have the place to themselves. Although the monsoon rain had mercifully abated for a time, swollen clouds promised another downpour before morning. "Our contact desired privacy, Joaquin, and we have taken the necessary precautions." Joaquin remained unconvinced.
"We should not have come here. Now is a bad time. There is too much trouble in the air."
This much is true, Khan thought regretfully. 1993 had been a bloody year on the Indian subcontinent, marked by months of religious strife and rioting. It saddened him that senseless sectarian violence still tore at the delicate social fabric of his homeland. He vowed to put a stop to such madness, even if he had to conquer the entire world to do so. Khan turned toward the soldier nearest the temple, who was scanning the imposing structure with a handheld mechanism of Khan's own design. "What do you read?"
"I am detecting only a single individual within the temple."
Khan nodded. "An acceptable risk. Post your guards outside every exit. Joaquin and I shall enter alone, as arranged." Khan and Joaquin walked beneath the sculpted gate of the temple, leaving the armed troopers behind. A flicker of trepidation passed through Khan as they stepped into the cavernous entrance of the worship hall and then went deeper into man-made caverns hollowed out of the living rock 12 centuries before. Finally, they came to the location described in the coded communications leading up to this meeting. A somber shrine.
"Show yourself. My time is valuable. Do not waste it."
"Very well, Khan Singh."
Khan turned his flashlight toward the voice and saw a skeletal figure step out from behind one of the time-worn columns. The speaker, a Russian, looked more dead than alive. Khan heard the man's lungs wheeze painfully with every breath and guessed that the man was dying. He was puzzled by the man's behavior.
Where is your own light?
The haggard Russian removed a compact flashlight from a coat pocket and flicked it on.
I was merely accustoming myself to the dark. Not a bad idea, you must admit, given that it is in unending darkness that we must all ultimately spend eternity.
Khan had little interest in the man's morbid musings.
Do you have what you promised?
Khan had come to Ajora in search of knowledge, specifically technical know-how relating to advanced genetic engineering. Despite the assiduous efforts of Poulan Dasal, her team at Chrysalis Island had not yet been able to duplicate Serena Kaur's success at cloning multiple copies of a single fertilized human egg, a key step in the application of genetic engineering on a large scale. But a few weeks ago, Khan had been contacted by the man before him who claimed to have classified scientific information from a top-secret genetic research project conducted by the Russian military some years before the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Russian had offered him the information in exchange for political asylum and a generous pension. How could Khan blame this wretched specimen for trying to make the best of whatever time remained to him? The Russian, instead of handing over any sort of folder or disc, casually looked around the lavishly ornamented shrine.
They say that over 200,000 tons of rock were cut away from the hillside to shape this temple and its surrounding walls.
Khan got the distinct impression that the Russian was stalling. The man seemed to be fumbling with something in the left pocket of his heavy greatcoat. Moving with the speed and ferocity of a Bengal tiger, Khan shoved the man against the nearest column, then held him in place with a single hand around his throat while using his other hand to search the man's pocket. Khan's fingers closed on a small plastic object in the pocket of the coat. To his surprise, the confiscated item turned out to be a miniaturized walkie-talkie of some sort. Khan held the incriminating device up to his mouth and pressed the speak button.
This is Khan Noonien Singh. Who is this?
Good evening, Khan. Or should I say good morning?
Khan recognized the voice of Vasily Hunyadi.
I am so sorry to hear about the tragic earthquake in your country. Farewell, Khan.
Khan crushed the useless device within his fist. Then the first tremor struck. The floor of the ancient temple shuddered violently, and Khan watched in alarm as massive columns tottered unsteadily, threatening to bring the entire shrine down upon their heads. There is no classified Soviet data, Khan realized with dreadful certainty. But how had Hunyadi managed to trigger an earthquake at will? A falling fragment struck the Russian in the head, flattening his skull. Khan turned to see an outcropping of solid rock rear up from the floor beneath Joaquin's feet, knocking the bodyguard to the ground, where he was struck by heavy lumps of shattered stone. Khan stumbled across the swaying floor to Joaquin's side. He grabbed hold of Joaquin beneath his arms in hopes of dragging him to safety. But where? Perhaps between two of the sturdy columns? He staggered across the rubble-strewn floor toward the nearest pillars. To his horror, he saw one of the teetering columns break free from its moorings and topple towards him. Only his superhuman reflexes saved both he and Joaquin from instant death. Dropping the bodyguard back onto the ground, Khan threw up his arms with lightning speed and caught the falling pillar before it smashed his skull, its killing weight suspended only centimeters above his head. Mercifully, the tremors had begun to subside, but Joaquin remained unconscious at Khan's feet. It was all Khan could do just to keep the colossal pillar from squashing them both. I must survive, if only to wreak terrible vengeance upon Hunyadi. Uncounted hours later, Khan heard the drilling first, before an incandescent shaft of light invaded the darkness. One of his warriors shouted through a gap in the piled debris.
Hold on, Your Excellency. We are working as fast as we can.
It took several more minutes for them to clear a path to Khan's place of imprisonment. Soldiers rushed forward to lift the column higher, allowing Khan to gratefully slide out from beneath the nearly unbearable load. Khan refused to leave the collapsed chaitya until he saw Joaquin carefully carried out on a stretcher. Ament met him beneath the arched doorway of the temple with a cup of hot chai. That she had been able to travel all the way here from Chandigarh, almost 1,200 kilometers away, provided some indication of just how long he had been entombed. I am relieved to find you well, Lord Khan. Joaquin's misfortunes sadden me, but I am sure that with time he will recover. Although Khan's body had yet to recover from its ordeal, his mind was already thinking ahead. The quake. Somehow, Hunyadi caused it. Ament looked unsurprised. Details are fuzzy, but we suspect that someone exploded some kind of concussive device at the bottom of a nearby reservoir. In theory, sufficient force added to the pressure of the water in the reservoir could have overloaded an underlying thrust fault, triggering seismic activity nearby. Shortly from the passenger seat of his private helicopter, Khan had an opportunity to witness the full extent of the disaster. A heavy rain was falling, but Khan could still make out the flattened remains of numerous small villages. Seated behind him, Ament provided Khan with informed commentary on the tragic scene beneath them.
Preliminary reports suggest that over 20 villages have been obliterated, rendering an estimated 130,000 people homeless. The final death toll may climb as high as 30,000 victims.
Khan marveled in awestruck horror. And all of it was Hunyadi's fault. Justice demanded that Hunyadi pay for his crimes against humanity.
Let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
No thanks. I'm expecting someone. Roberta sighed wearily as yet another amorous lounge lizard cruised away from her table after offering to keep her company. Here I am trying to keep a low profile, but I guess I can't complain too much if I'm still a wolf magnet at age 44. She was waiting in Vic's lounge at the Las Vegas Dunes Hotel, wondering what was keeping her contact. She looked at her watch, then looked up and saw Shannon O'Donnell, her favorite future astronaut, peering down at her through the lounge's dim lighting.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Helen, but something came up at the lab.
Roberta winced inwardly, feeling a twinge of guilt every time Shannon addressed her as Helen. The young NASA engineer was putting her career and her security clearance on the line every time she met Roberta like this. Yet the older woman still used the alias Helen Swanson whenever she dealt with Shannon. It was unavoidable, though. The fewer people who knew about Roberta Lincoln and her connection to Gary 7, the better. Roberta glanced around to make certain no one was listening to them.
So, how's life at Area 51?
Shannon slid into the seat across from Roberta.
The design for the impulse engine is still giving us problems. The power yield ratios are steeper than I'd like. Perhaps you might be able to shed some light on the problem?
Roberta removed a manila envelope from her handbag and scooted it across the table to Shannon.
You may find some useful ideas here.
Roberta had first met Shannon O'Donnell 7 years ago. It was then that Roberta had teleported into Area 51 to recover a few items of 23rd century technology that the Enterprise crew had accidentally left behind during their 1986 whale napping expedition. Afterwards, Roberta had cultivated Shannon as a useful ally inside Area 51. With Gary Seven's blessing and encouragement, she had been feeding Shannon occasional tips on starship engineering for years now. Helen's boss, Dr. Carlson, was the only person at Area 51 who knew about the covert assistance. Shannon carefully tucked the folded envelope into her own handbag. I don't suppose you're going to tell me, at last, where all this astounding technical know-how is coming from. Trust me, Shannon, it's better this way. But why are you going to all this trouble to help the U.S. government build a top-secret sleeper ship? Roberta squirmed uncomfortably upon her seat. How could she tell the idealistic young woman that the DY-100 was Gary Seven's backup plan just in case World War III proved unavoidable? If necessary, the high-tech starship could serve as a futuristic ark capable of ferrying a handful of human survivors to a brand new beginning on another world. Believe me, Shannon, you don't want to know. Angry shouts and chanting coming from outside the fortress walls reached Khan's ears, despite his best efforts to tune them out. Ungrateful curs! Who are they to judge me? Khan's mood darkened further as Ament came into his office. Lately, it seemed as though he and his once-trusted advisor seldom saw eye to eye anymore. He found himself increasingly reluctant to share with her the details of his war strategies. Pardon me, Lord Khan. I am sorry to interrupt, but I fear that more pressing matters demand your attention. She glanced in the direction of the shouting mob outside the fortress. Khan walked over to a waist-high shisham wood table where a pitcher of iced chai had been laid out for his refreshment. He poured himself a glass and calmly took a sip before speaking. What have I to fear from the senseless yowls of a malcontented minority? Ament followed him over to the carved wooden table. Your popularity is slipping, my lord, among the general populace. Inflation and unemployment are rising throughout India, yet the common people fear that you no longer hear their cries, that you are preoccupied with other matters. I am fighting to save the entire planet. Ament declined to let the matter drop. Perhaps, my lord, but the people neither know nor care about your secret wars against Hunyadi, Gary Seven, and the rest. They feel only the effects of your neglect. Khan raised up his hand to staunch the hectoring flow of words. I will not be lectured to like an errant schoolboy. You forget your place. A look of disappointment passed briefly over the Egyptian woman's immaculate features. There was a time you welcomed my dissent. Leave me. I am not in a giving mood today. Ament exited as gracefully as she had entered, leaving him alone with his dissatisfaction and resentment. Fools, peasants. They should be thankful that I see them as anything more than useful cannon fodder. There are too many inferior, irrational people in the world, too many primitive minds, keeping humanity mired in barbarism, thanks to their unmitigated ignorance and prejudices. He gloomily considered the sorry state of the world, war and portents of war everywhere he looked. How could one man, even such a man as he, eradicate all the chaos and savagery at large in the world today? A servant entered the room. 1,000 pardons, Lord Khan, but there is a stranger who desires an audience with your Excellency. An Englishman, I believe. He says he knew your mother. More intrigued than irritated, Khan desired to know more. Bring him to me. At first glance, the anonymous caller proved a disappointment. Khan frowned at the sight of a short, dumpy older man, his shabby safari garb, reminiscent of the bygone days of the British Raj, made him look like a one-time great white hunter gone very badly to seed.
Good morning, Lord Khan. I don't suppose you remember me, Dr. Donald Archibald Williams, late of the Chrysalis Project?
Khan probed his encyclopedic memory. He had been only 4 years old, but he dimly remembered seeing Williams in the company of his mother. To think his mother perished at Chrysalis, yet this cringing wretch survived. He took an immediate dislike to Williams, but strove to hear the man out.
"How can I help you, Doctor?" "Well, you see, Lord Khan, after everything went to hell 20 years ago, I thought it best to drop out of sight for a while. Recently, however, through no real fault of my own, mind you, I found myself in a bit of hot water. Consequently, a change of scenery seemed to be in order, and it occurred to me to look you up."
He fixed a calculating gaze on Khan, providing a glimmer of a wily mind within his wasted shell.
"I must admit, your lordship, I would certainly appreciate your hospitality and financial assistance at this difficult period, but I have not come here empty-handed."
Khan was skeptical. "Explain, quickly." A sly expression crossed William's florid countenance.
"Your lordship, have you ever heard of necrotizing fasciitis?"
Khan thought the term somewhat familiar, but he had been trained as an engineer, not a biologist.
Some manner of bacteria, correct?
A flesh-eating bacteria, my lord, capable of devouring living tissue at a frightening and invariably fatal rate. Specifically, it's a strain of antibiotic-resistant streptococcus. Before your mother died, she developed an unusually potent strain of the flesh-eating bacteria. She also made sure that you and the rest of the Chrysalis children possessed a genetic immunity to all forms of streptococcus.
Khan stared at Williams in horror and morbid curiosity.
"But why would my mother do such a thing?"
Well, why, it was all part of her master plan, your lordship. To clear the world of its surplus population when you and the other children were ready to take over. The plan, which only a very few of us knew, was to wait until you came of age, then unleash the bacteria all over the planet.
Khan was uncertain what he should think or feel about this startling revelation. Germ warfare against all of humanity? The very idea was horrific. And yet, wasn't it only less than half an hour ago that he had despaired of ever bringing peace to worlds warring billions? That there were too many ignorant, inferior people in the world?
What became of the bacteria?
It can be yours, your lordship. I pinched the recipe, the exact genetic sequence, right before Chrysalis blew up.
In other words, you stole my mother's secrets, then abandoned her.
No, your lordship. There was no way I could have saved your mother. She was determined to stay on at Chrysalis until the bitter end. I was just trying to preserve the fruits of her genius.
And your own craven skin.
Khan was sorely tempted to execute Williams on the spot. The Englishman must have spotted the deadly intent in Khan's eyes, for he dropped onto his knees and raised his clasped hands in supplication.
It wasn't my fault. It was Seven and that damn blonde. They're the ones who got your mother killed.
Khan felt his blood turn to ice.
What did you say?
It was 2 American spies, a man named Gary Seven and this blonde chippy who called herself Veronica Neary. They infiltrated Chrysalis right there at the end. Seven somehow managed to activate Chrysalis's emergency self-destruct procedure. The whole place went up in a mushroom cloud, taking your mother with it.
Khan knew with utter certainty that Williams had spoken the truth. In the back of his mind, He had always suspected that Gary Seven and his pert sidekick had played some part in the destruction of Chrysalis. Why else would Seven have tracked Khan and the other super children so meticulously? At times, Khan even thought he recalled being spirited away from Chrysalis by the swirling blue energy of Seven's matter transporter device. Khan contemplated with growing fury all the manifold ways in which Seven had attempted to twist Khan's destiny to his own design. No more, he thought. You and your perfidious henchwoman will regret that you ever set foot in India. Khan reached down and effortlessly pulled the groveling Williams back onto his feet. Tell me more about this flesh-eating bacteria. At Fort Cochise in southeast Arizona, the tight security reminded Roberta of Area 51, or East Berlin, back during the bad old days of the Cold War. Using the name Roberta Landers, she had come as a potential recruit for the AEV, the Army of Eternal Vigilance. She was soon to meet General Hawkeye Morrison. Fort Cochise was built on the site of a defunct mining town. A guard led her across the grounds of the compound, where uniformed men and women wearing various shades of khaki and camo gear went diligently about their business, repairing fortifications, patching up weathered adobe, or transporting heavy crates of food, medicine, and ammunition from one building to another. Every one of the fort's adult inhabitants appeared to be heavily armed. Even a group of women stringing up laundry to dry had handguns holstered to their hips. The sudden burst of automatic gunfire startled her. She spotted several militiamen practicing at a distant firing range. The whole camp seemed to be on a war footing. Ironically, given all his anti-government rhetoric, General Morrison's personal offices turned out to be housed in the refurbished shell of the town's long-dead post office. Roberta endured a round of passwords, searches, and overly invasive inspections before being handed off to a rangy, grim-looking soldier who finally led her into the presence of the AEV's supreme commander. Hawkeye Morrison rose from behind his desk as Roberta entered the room. She recognized the notorious militia leader and one-time Chrysalis kid from various right-wing periodicals, not to mention her and Seven's own surveillance photos. Morrison was chewing gum and wearing his usual silver mirror shades.
Welcome to Fort Cochise, Ms. Landers.
Please, call me Bobby. It's such an honor to finally meet you. You're a genuine American hero. Morrison accepted her praise with a show of humility.
I'm just an old-fashioned patriot. Please take a seat.
She plopped down into a chair. Her current escort, whose sun-baked, leathery face appeared locked in a permanent scowl, remained standing behind her, stiffly watching over her. Morrison nodded toward her taciturn shadow.
Don't let Freeman Porter make you uncomfortable. He's here strictly for my own protection. I can't afford to take any unnecessary chances.
Roberta readily nodded in agreement. Of course not. The beast will stop at nothing to stamp out the last flickers of individual liberty. That's why I contacted you via your website, to join your all-important crusade against godless collectivism.
I was impressed, Bobby, by the passionate eloquence of your letter, as well as by your own fledgling efforts in the struggle.
He gave his PC's monitor a half-turn. At the top of the screen was a headline composed of animated flames. The Unblinking Eye. Smaller headlines hyped such startling revelations as FEMA, the Secret Government, and Barcodes, Mark of the Beast. Morrison offered his congratulations.
Your online newsletter is one of the best I've seen.
Roberta was perversely proud of the eye, which she had started up a few months back to cement her cover. She thought she had captured just the right tone of belligerent paranoia. "General, I felt I had to warn people about what our government was up to." Morrison nodded approvingly.
But the feds are just one tentacle of a greater beast, a secret new world order ruled by an elite group of genetic supermen. I know this for a fact, because I've stared the enemy in the face and in the mirror.
He removed his mirrored sunglasses to look Roberta directly in the eye. Oversized red orbs, like the eyes of a hunting bird, stared into hers. Hawkeye was more than just a colorful nickname.
Now let me tell you something, Bobby. I'm a bit more than human myself, the product of the same unholy conspiracy that gave birth to the beast. Among other things, I've got a touch of raptor DNA in me, giving me extraordinary eyesight.
Roberta gasped out loud, feigning surprise. But how? I don't understand."
Well, it's very simple. To my mind, my duty as an American takes precedence over the dictates of my tainted DNA. Therefore, I've vowed to defend humanity against my own kind.
Roberta knew that the really ironic thing was Morrison was right in a way. Genetically engineered supermen, along with Khan in particular, were out to take over the world, unbeknownst to 99% of the general public. Avian eyes looked her over speculatively.
Now let me be straight with you, Bobby. Your resume checks out, and you seem reasonably fit for a woman of 45. Nevertheless, we have a difficult struggle ahead against the toughest of foes, and I wonder if you're exactly Army material.
Roberta rose from her chair as if preparing to exit. Then, without warning, she jabbed her elbow into the six-pack abs of the hulking bodyguard standing behind her. He doubled over in pain. Then he lunged for her with both hands. Roberta was ready for him. One deft jiu-jitsu move later, Porter was flat on his back on top of Morrison's desk. The militia leader's jaw dropped in mid-chew.
Lord have mercy. Welcome to the AEV, free woman landers.
Two weeks later, on August 29, 1994, over 2,000 delegates gathered in Geneva, Switzerland, for a plenary session of the United Nations. As they sat in the Grand Assembly Hall, Vasily Hunyadi roared at them defiantly, pounding his fist upon the black marble podium.
The Serbian people have nothing to apologize for. We have only acted to reclaim our rightful territories and to ensure the genetic purity of our population.
The one-eyed Romanian dictator knew that the vast majority of his audience considered him a war criminal. He had come to Geneva to demonstrate to all the world that he was not afraid of defying international censure in pursuit of a greater Serbia. Many of his advisers had feared for his safety, but Hunyadi had reasoned that not even Khan would dare to strike at a Grand Assembly of the United Nations.
Send your NATO warplanes. Drop your smart bombs. We shall not be deterred.
Pausing, Hunyadi smiled thinly beneath his hirsute upper lip. Let them jabber like the unevolved apes they are, he thought. He was about to resume speaking when a peculiar odor, like the smell of a dead rat, reached his superhumanly acute nostrils. Within moments, he saw puzzled delegates sniffing and looking around in confusion. A hideous possibility entered his mind, and he looked up in dismay at the ventilation grills meant to provide fresh air to the crowded assembly hall. He did not see any noxious vapors, but that did not mean that there was nothing there. The first symptoms struck before he had a chance to escape. Hunyadi suddenly experienced trouble breathing. Mucus streamed from his nose, sliming his bristly mustache. His head started pounding. Chills racked his body. His teeth chattered. His throat ached. Nor was he alone in his distress. Through his single watery eye, he saw distinguished diplomats and their aides bolting from their desks, coughing and vomiting uncontrollably. Stricken delegates fell to the floor, a bloody froth appearing at the corners of their mouths. Too late, Hunyadi recognized the telltale signs of a weapon he himself had considered using on occasion. Sarin, nerve gas. Hunyadi had seen much death in his time and caused even more, yet he had dreamed of so much more, of becoming the undisputed ruler of the Balkans, then triumphantly carrying his banner across the length and breadth of Europe and beyond. But now those magnificent ambitions had evaporated into the air like the toxic vapors poisoning his lungs. He had lost, leaving another to reign supreme over mankind. Who would conquer the world now? That same day in Arizona, at Fort Cochise, Roberta found herself kneeling beside a cranky air cleaner, trying to get at a burnt-out capacitor inside. The omnipresent air cleaners, which were installed all over the militia compound, were forever breaking down, necessitating never-ending repairs and maintenance. As a dedicated new recruit to the Army of Eternal Vigilance, Bobby Landers was naturally expected to pitch in and do her part to keep the atmosphere of Fort Cochise safe from dust, dander, and surprise government gas attacks. General Morrison, she had discovered, was positively obsessed with poison gas. Not exactly my most glamorous undercover assignment, but speak of the devil. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the general approaching on one of his frequent surprise inspections of the camp's defenses, his raptor's eyes searching for chinks in the citadel's armor. The general was accompanied by his second-in-command, Freeman Clayton Porter, whom Roberta had so effectively ambushed on her very first day at the fort. She could hear Morrison telling Porter,
"I want the entire camp on a heightened state of alert. We must expect swift and forceful retaliation for our Geneva operation."
Roberta's ears perked up. Retaliation? Geneva? A set of phony Walkman headphones made it look as though she was listening to music as she worked. In fact, the plastic headset actually enhanced her hearing, making it easier to eavesdrop on Morrison as he continued his conversation with Porter.
"What about that force field gadget we got from our friend in Chandigarh? Have our tech boys got that up and running?"
Porter looked around cautiously before answering.
"We think so, sir, although it's hard to tell if it's genuinely doing anything. Do you really believe that the government truly possesses some kind of matter transporter device?"
"Freeman Porter, do you underestimate the resources of the beast? If the redoubtable Mr. Singh says that our enemies can teleport into our very midst, then we would be reckless not to take him at his word."
Roberta couldn't believe what she was hearing. Khan had shared his anti-transporter force field technology with Morrison? She realized that it made her mission a lot more complicated, especially if she couldn't port out if things got hairy. She was tempted to pull out her servo and check for the force field right away. That might be a little too conspicuous, though, with Morrison and Porter gabbing only a few yards away. Better to play it cool and scope out the situation when she had a bit more privacy. Porter scowled.
"General, I don't trust that crafty Indian."
"Neither do I, Freeman Porter, but for now our interests appear to coincide. And don't forget, all he asked in exchange for the force field generator was that we stage the Geneva operation on one particular day. There will be time to wrangle with Khan Noonien Singh later on, after we've taken down the rest of the New World Order. But for now, Phase 1, Geneva, is a success. Are you ready for Phase 2?
"Yes, sir. I already have my passport and plane ticket."
Excellent.
Their impromptu stroll finally took them beyond the range of Roberta's artificially enhanced hearing, leaving her frustrated. Morrison tightly controlled the flow of news into the compound. She and the other rank-and-file members of the militia were completely cut off from the rest of the planet. She needed to find out what happened in Geneva. As soon as the two men left the barracks, she pulled out her servo and tried to contact 7. No such luck. Just as she feared, the darn force field was fully operational. That left her with only one option: the computer in Morrison's personal office. As far as she knew, it was the only computer in the compound with a working connection to the internet. Hastily screwing the top of the air cleaner shut again, she scrambled to her feet. Fortunately, the remodeled post office was not far away, but 2 rifle-toting guards standing watch over the entrance to Morrison's headquarters posed a major obstacle to her plans. What I really need is a good distraction. Glancing around furtively, she noticed the paramilitary laundry hanging on the line. She set her servo on burn. As the invisible beam zipped across the courtyard, it ignited the dangling clothing, which burst immediately into flame, clothesline and all.
Help!
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 Fire!
Fire! Fire!
Help! Fire!
As Roberta hoped, the 2 guards ran to help put out the fire. She sprinted for the front door of the squat adobe building, silently darted inside, and made a beeline for Morrison's office. She kept the bogus Walkman on in order to keep an augmented ear out for the sound of Morrison's return. Thankfully, Morrison's computer had a fast modem. Roberta searched the web for news of the notorious Geneva operation. She didn't have to search very hard. Although the official news outlets were playing it cautious, acknowledging only unconfirmed rumors of some sort of disaster or terrorist attack at the United Nations offices in Geneva, Switzerland, the rest of the internet was abuzz with horrific first- and second-hand reports of people dropping like flies during a special assembly. A few survivors speculated ominously about nerve gas. Roberta suddenly understood that Morrison's paranoia regarding poison gas was simply a psychological projection of his own monstrous agenda. But why a date that had apparently been specified by Khan? Roberta was baffled at first, but the blurry picture became crystal clear when she noticed just whom the UN was hosting at the time of the massacre. Vasily Hunyadi, now believed to be one of the many fatalities. Khan was using one Superman to take out another. Forget Phase 1 for a second, she urged herself. What the heck is Phase 2? Flipping through an upright desk calendar revealed a date circled in red, November 14th. A handwritten notation on the page listed a specific time as well, 8:23 Greenwich Mean Time. She used the servo to open the locked file drawer beneath the desktop, where she discovered, neatly and meticulously labeled, a hanging folder tagged Operation Phase 2. Inside the folder, she found, much to her surprise, a newspaper clipping concerning the beginning of passenger service on November 14th of the recently opened undersea tunnel linking England and France. She tried to imagine the consequences of releasing poison gas into the channel, as the brand new tunnel was popularly known. Reacting quickly, she fired off an emergency email to Gary 7, telling him everything she knew about Phase 2, including a concise physical description of Porter. Just as she was finishing up, the sonic amplifiers in her headphones picked up the sound of Morrison's irate voice right outside the adobe walls of the former post office.
A fire? How does a load of soggy laundry catch fire?
Roberta's blue-green eyes searched every nook and cranny of the sturdy and windowless office. Morrison was too paranoid not to have some kind of emergency escape route. Her servo scanned the sun-dried brick walls around her, trying and failing to locate a secret passage. Roberta heard footsteps in the hall outside, along with the sound of Morrison and Porter heatedly discussing the mystery of the flaming laundry. Buying time, she used the servo to fuse the doorknob, locking the two men out. On a hunch, she scanned beneath the genuine Navajo rug covering the floor. Eureka! The servo detected a hollow passageway beneath the carpet just as Morrison pounded on the door.
What in thunder? Let me in, you trespassing spy! You can't get away!
Yanking the colorful Native American rug aside, Roberta discovered an old-fashioned trapdoor with a flat metal ring for a handle. She wondered briefly if it dated back to the town's mining days, then pulled open the trapdoor with both hands. Beneath the trapdoor, a rusted metal ladder led straight down into a beckoning black pit. The old mines. As either Morrison or Porter fired blindly into the office, Roberta hurriedly clambered down the ladder, tugging the trapdoor shut above her. The important thing was that she had gotten the word out to Seven. Now she knew that he would see that the channel didn't suffer the same ghastly fate as the Palais des Nations. But there was still one more thing that worried her more than anything else. What else was Khan up to these days? In a test lab on Chrysalis Island, Dr. Poulan Dassal waited patiently as her assistants wheeled the test subject into the hermetically sealed experimental chamber. Strapped onto a gurney was Brother Arcturus. The captured cult leader was stripped of his customary chartreuse robes, his epidermis completely shaved of body hair.
"Do not do this, my sister. The stars forbid it."
Standing next to Dassal, wearing an identical yellow hazmat suit, Dr. Williams flinched visibly.
"Can't we put a gag on him or something?"
Dassal shook her head. "No, it may be necessary to interrogate him regarding his symptoms, if any." Arcturus's arms were strapped to his sides, and his brilliant sapphire eyes glowed with an unattractive mixture of fright and religious fervor.
"Please, for the love of our celestial star-fathers, release me."
Dassal ignored the specimen's superstitious rantings. Satisfied that Arcturus was adequately restrained, she sealed the hood of her neoprene hazmat suit and activated its self-contained breathing apparatus while directing Williams to do the same. Of course, she could have observed the experiment from behind the transparent glass window of the observation gallery, but she wanted to examine at close range the effects of the flesh-eating bacteria on a specimen of genetically engineered humanity. Following the mass suicide of his followers, Brother Arcturus had conveniently fallen into the hands of Khan's agents, who had arranged to have the disgraced cult leader secretly transported to Chrysalis Island. Dassal looked at Williams.
"Are you ready, Doctor?"
Williams nodded hesitantly.
"Oh, all right, Dr. Dassal. Let's get this over with."
Raising her hand, Dassal signaled the technicians on the other side of the glass window to release the bacteria into the closed environment of the test chamber. She and Williams had labored strenuously over the last several months to produce an airborne version of the genetically engineered strain of Strep A developed by Serena Kaur many years ago. Dassal glanced at the gauges monitoring Arcturus's vital signs, her eyes narrowing. She examined Arcturus for any sign of the carnivorous microorganism taking effect. 90 minutes after the bacteria was introduced into the chamber, the specimen continued to display no obvious signs of infection. All of their earlier test subjects had succumbed to the bacteria's ravages within minutes of inhalation. She instructed Williams to watch the specimen, and she walked across the floor to a video phone. A secure satellite link instantly connected her with Chandigarh, half a world away, where she knew Khan was eagerly awaiting the results of the test. His noble visage appeared upon the miniature video screen.
"Well, Doctor, how fares your experiment?"
She plugged her microphone into the console so that she could communicate with Khan in private.
"The results exceed my expectations. All evidence suggests that those of our elite genetic makeup are indeed immune to the carnivorous form of Strep A." "Excellent. It seems the unsavory Dr. Williams did not mislead us after all. My mother's brilliant creation truly provides a means of separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak." "As you say, Lord Khan."
A calculating look came over Khan's face.
"Speaking of Dr. Williams, would you say that his usefulness is at an end?"
Her gaze shifted from the video screen to the imperfect human in his protective plastic suit.
Yes, my lord. I do not believe that he has anything more to contribute.
Khan stroked his chin. I do not trust a man who would trade such a lethal secret for his own security, nor one who has already abandoned Chrysalis once. You know what to do, Doctor.
Yes, Lord Khan, I understand. But what of the bacteria?
I want you to devote all your resources, every vat and test tube, to producing the bacteria in large quantities, enough to consume the world if necessary. And one more thing, Doctor. As we have previously discussed, you and your people are not to discuss this topic with any unauthorized individuals, including certain members of my executive staff.
Understood, my lord.
Khan had already made it clear to Dasal that Ament, his chief domestic advisor, was not to be informed of the research into necrotizing fasciitis. Khan bid the doctor farewell and ended the transmission. Unhooking her mic from the communications console, Dasal turned to confront an increasingly restive Dr. Williams.
Well, Dr. Dasal, what did he say? He is satisfied with our results.
Walking over to the equipment cart, she lifted a scalpel from the tray on top of the cart. Her face devoid of emotion, she stepped forward and methodically slashed William's hazmat suit with her scalpel.
Oh my God, woman! What have you done?
Dasal stepped backwards.
I have finished the test.
Williams lunged toward her awkwardly, but Dasal retreated behind the equipment cart to watch with interest as the infection took hold. Sweating profusely, Williams fumbled clumsily with the seal of his hood, finally succeeded in ripping the gear from his head. His red-rimmed eyes bulged from their sockets.
I need water!
Fever and dehydration, Dasal noted with clinical dispassion. Interesting. His symptoms developed at a vastly accelerated rate. Unable to stand, he dropped to the floor. A purplish rash appeared on his face and throat. Blisters broke out upon his flesh, leaking a foul black fluid. The same dark effluvia oozed from the gashes in the dying man's chest. Dasal regretted that there wasn't time to strip the shredded hazmat suit from William's body entirely, the better to observe the progress of the infection elsewhere on his anatomy. But she consoled herself with the thought of performing a full post-mortem on the Englishman later on. A survivor of Bhopal and extensive research into biological warfare, she had a strong stomach. Even so, as the voracious bacteria attacked Williams from within, she grew highly appreciative of the plastic faceplate, sparing her from the stench of living tissue necrotizing before her very eyes. Brother Arcturus shrieked from the gurney, horror-struck.
Celestial Starfathers! What malignant terrestrial blasphemy is this?
Dasal shushed him impatiently.
Quiet, Arcturus. You and I are perfectly safe.
The end came quickly. Much of William's swollen, mottled flesh died before he did, turning a pale necrotic blue. But toxic shock finally stopped his heart only minutes after his exposure to the contaminated air. Energized by the highly satisfying results of the experiment, Dasal gave orders to the onlooking technicians.
Flush the atmosphere in the test chamber. I want complete blood work and X-rays on both specimens, followed by immediate dissection and analysis.
Brother Arcturus's questionable sanity snapped completely. But Pulan Dasal was in too good a mood to care. She looked forward to updating Khan on the outcome of the experiment. Khan stood upon the ramparts of his fortress, looking out upon the city of Chandigarh. He did not like what he saw. Designed by a Swiss architect merely 40 years ago, Chandigarh enjoyed a deserved reputation as India's most modern and well-organized city. Wide, leafy boulevards met at tidy right angles according to a sensible grid pattern that neatly divided the city into discrete zones and sectors. Open lawns and parks provided welcome oases of green amid steel and concrete buildings of modernist design. In contrast to, say, the sprawling disorder of Old Delhi, Chandigarh conveyed an impression of cleanliness and control, which was one of the reasons Khan had chosen the city as his capital. Now, however, the sector dominated by his fortress was beginning to resemble an armed camp. As a precaution against car bombs, the nearest streets had been closed to unauthorized auto traffic. 30 meters below, a team of army engineers were digging a trench along the base of the fortress, then rigging the moat with mines and motion detectors. This was not the brave new world he envisioned.
Lord Khan.
Khan turned away from his view of the city to behold, to his surprise and dismay, the Lady Ament striding toward him across the rampart. Lady Ament, what brings you up onto these lofty fortifications? Glancing about to make certain that none of the patrolling snipers and guardsmen were within earshot, she lowered her voice so that only Khan could hear.
Perhaps you can explain, my lord, why Dr. Dasal has seen fit to acquire over 200 working bio-warheads from the former Soviet Union?
Khan's face hardened. That is a security matter,
which you chose to keep from me.
What I do not comprehend is why you are transforming Chrysalis Island from a genetic research facility into an incubator and launch pad for full-scale biological warfare. What possible use could there be for such an arsenal, and for a mutated strain of flesh-eating bacteria? His dark brows descended like lightning bolts. How do you know of that?
I am not without my own resources. I know all about this new form of Streptococcus and of Dr. Dasal's mandate at your own instruction to cultivate the bacteria in mass quantities. But why, my lord? Is not Morning Star deterrent enough? What need is there for a second doomsday weapon?
You miss the key strategic difference, Lady Ament. Morning Star is indeed a weapon of last resort. Used to its fullest capacity, my Light-bringer would destroy the ozone layer upon which all life depends, making the world unfit for man and Superman alike. This ingeniously constructed bacteria, however, would merely prune the Earth of its teeming masses of ignorant, inferior humanity. Ament had a look of extreme concern upon her flawless visage.
Surely, Lord Khan, you do not actually intend to unleash a plague of such magnitude.
Khan turned his back on the city below, preferring to contemplate the distant Himalayas. The snow-capped peaks looked blissfully pristine and devoid of humanity. He felt much older than his modest 25 years.
I am a superior being, Lady Ament, but I am not immortal. Better perhaps to wipe the stage clean, so that our sort can inherit a cleansed and vanquished Earth.
Ament scarcely masked her obvious disapproval.
Both you and Dr. Dasal lived through the nightmare of Bhopal, yet now you and she are conspiring to create a biological catastrophe many times more deadly than the one you experienced in your youths.
Khan refused to be shamed by Ament's manipulative invocation of a bygone tragedy. The carnage at Bhopal was a pointless accident. It served no higher purpose. My carnivorous bacteria, should I choose to employ it, would bring about a new beginning for civilization. But what of you, Lady Ament? Where do you stand? To her credit, she met his probing eyes without evasion.
I will never cease from speaking my conscience, and I will be with you until the end.
Khan turned once more to look upon Chandigarh, sullied by the base, imperfect beings infesting the city with their perversity and ingratitude. He tried to imagine the roomy boulevards and avenues swept clean of useless human flotsam. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. The Tuamotu Islands have long been known as the dangerous archipelago due to its sudden storms, shifting currents, and hidden reefs. Since Khan had taken possession of Mururoa, that particular atoll had become more deadly still, guarded day and night by a squadron of his finest warriors. Only a single channel passed through the verdant ring of the island to the inner lagoon. Once, 3 years ago, Roberta Lincoln had managed to invade the island by using scuba gear to swim unnoticed through the passage. But now the underwater cameras observed every shark, squid, and jellyfish that made its way from the sea to the lagoon and back again. Since that previous incursion on the occasion of Morning Star's launch, no unwelcome stranger had set foot on Chrysalis Island. Until tonight. A large brown manta ray swam toward the lagoon. Its wing-like pectoral fins flapped gently as it cruised through the channel without incident, then made its way beneath the turquoise surface of the lagoon until, surprisingly, it rendezvoused with a black-tipped reef shark, 2 bottlenose dolphins, and another sizable ray. Upon the manta's arrival, the eclectic coterie of sea creatures deliberately beached themselves upon the sandy shore, where a strange undinal transformation took place. The manta rose upon a pair of slender legs and handily shed its glistening wings and torso, which, upon careful inspection, could be seen to be a painted rubber facsimile of a real giant ray. A handsome Chinese woman emerged from the counterfeit devilfish, then watched in silence as 4 other women discarded their fin disguises. Gifted with exceptional night vision, Chen Tijun was glad to see that all of Team Artemis was accounted for. It was far too early in the mission to start losing Amazons. The exiled superwoman rapidly surveyed their situation and surroundings. As planned, it was a clear, moonless night. Though hurricane season was months away, little did Khan's minions know that another kind of storm was creeping up on Mururoa. She could spy the lights of the Centre d'Expérimentation du Pacifique, roughly half a kilometer away up a sloping hillside carpeted with dense vegetation. While her team inspected and assembled their weapons, Chen flipped open the lid of a cellular phone. She wanted to check in with the enigmatic instigator of tonight's covert action. Artemis to Butler. Repeat, Artemis to Butler. A blonde-haired American woman in her mid-40s, whom Chen knew only as Caroline Butler, appeared on the communicator's miniature view screen.
Copy that, Artemis. Where are you?
We have successfully reached the inner shore of the lagoon. What is your latest intel regarding the first and secondary targets?
All systems are go, Artemis. Khan's stockpile of carnivorous bacteria is being stored in an airtight isolation chamber in the main biological testing area 2 levels down.
Chen shook her head, amazed that even Khan could have spawned such a lethal abomination threatening the lives of billions of innocent women and, somewhat less importantly, their men. It would be ashes by dawn. The contents of her backpack would guarantee that, if nothing else. Butler, what of the secondary target?
That's good too, by all reports. Dr. DeSalle is working late in her labs as usual. With luck, you should be able to snatch her without too much trouble.
Chen was tempted to laugh at the American woman's unfounded optimism. She knew from experience that there was no such thing as a trouble-free military mission. Amazons would die here tonight, but her 2-pronged mission, to destroy the malignant bacteria and deprive Khan of his foremost biological sorceress, more than justified any sacrifice. You may count on us, Butler. My misguided sister will no longer serve Khan after this night, even if I must destroy her myself. Artemis out. Chen inspected her troops. All were superwomen, born of Chrysalis, and veterans of dozens of daring raids and rescue missions waged against the oppressive forces of patriarchy and misogyny. She nodded at the lighted complex atop the hill. There is our target. Go! An Amazon named Zenobia took point, leading them uphill. Thorns and twigs, branches and brambles tugged at their uniforms and skin, scratching against their faces. Yet Chen knew that they couldn't avoid detection forever. At some point they would need to fight their way into the fetid bowels of the center. She glanced back over her shoulder. From this height she could easily see the towering rocket gantry rising from the forest on the other side of the lagoon. An Ariane 5 rocket intended to deliver goddess knows what unholy payload into the pristine heavens rested upon the launch pad. Chen threw herself face first onto the leafy hillside. A blast of heat scorched her shoulders. She raised her head slightly to look for the source of the explosion. To her dismay, she saw a billowing column of black smoke rising from further up the hillside, where Zenobia had crept only seconds before. Besides claiming the life of their comrade, their cover had truly been blown. She rose rapidly to her feet. Amazons, attack! Chen took hold of the flare gun hanging from her belt and pointed the gun at the sky above the lagoon. The flare exploded above the shimmering waters, signaling the second wave of the invasion. Team Hecuba struck first. A gigantic fireball suddenly roared from the base of the rocket gantry, across the lagoon, igniting the Ariane itself. The Ariane's fiery demise marked the beginning of the Amazon's full-scale assault on Chrysalis Island. Hang-gliding warriors launched from speedboats hidden behind the neighboring islands came soaring over the island in droves, their pitch-black nylon wings all but invisible against the vacant sky. They strafed the ground with machine gun fire while hurling grenades at the anti-aircraft emplacements below. Fireballs blossomed amongst the tropical greenery, all intended to draw Khan's soldiers away from the center. But through intersecting branches, Chen saw dive-bombing Amazons begin to be cut down by anti-aircraft fire from below as the island's defenders went into action. Now murdered Amazons crashed like falling stars into the leafy trees and waiting lagoon. Chen could only hope that a significant proportion of her forces made it to the Earth intact to engage in further combat with Khan's ground forces. Chen followed the remainder of her team toward their ultimate destination, Pulan Dasal's biological shop of horrors. Chen heard masculine voices barking orders in Punjabi from the top of the hill. She yanked a grenade from the bandolier across her chest and lobbed it at the willing guardians of Khan's vile contagion. In her lab below ground, Pulan Dasal had been alone, sitting before her computer. A double layer of transparent glass and plastic separated her from the isolation chamber on the other side of the window, where industrial-sized fermentation vats, capable of holding several hundred kilograms of cultured Streptococcus A, rested safely within an airtight environment. Dasal looked up in alarm as the warning klaxons continued. Dasal to security. What is happening?
We are under attack, Doctor. Mad women with guns and grenades. They're attacking the entire island.
To Dasal, it all seemed so unreal. She had attended, as required, periodic security briefings, but she'd never truly expected to face an armed invasion of her laboratories. I am a scientist, not a soldier. Why can't I be left alone to do my work? A red light went off above the entrance of the control room. Dasal knew what that meant. The invaders had penetrated the center itself and were now at large somewhere in this very building. Fortunately, Dasal recalled, there was a contingency for such a scenario. The air being forcibly expelled into the corridor elicited a mirthless laugh from Chen Tijun. Just as the American woman predicted, Dasal, or one of her lab-jacketed minions, was pumping the killer germ into the building's air supply in a last-ditch attempt to slay any invaders in their tracks. A clever idea against almost any other foe. She and Rani, now the only surviving members of Team Artemis, sprinted down the infected hallways with impunity, immune to the voracious bacteria. With Khan's security forces engaged elsewhere on the island, she and Rani encountered little resistance as they stalked through the multi-story research complex. Terrified scientists and technicians cowered in their labs and cubicles. Chen let them hide. She was after bigger game. Galloping down the stairs, guns drawn and ready, they came to a heavy metal door marked with the universal symbol for biohazardous material. Thank the goddess that they had stopped Khan before he had a chance to launch his plague missiles. In the control room outside the isolation chamber, Dasal had finally succeeded in contacting Khan in Chandigarh.
You know what to do, Dr. Dasal. There is no other recourse.
Only the smoldering anger in his eyes hinted at his reaction to the attack on the island, and by their own kind, no less. With the failure of the pathogen to strike down the intruders, Dasal had belatedly realized the true nature of the invaders. Khan continued.
The warheads are loaded. The missiles are ready even earlier than we originally planned. Our enemies have forced our hands, so we must strike as swiftly and unexpectedly as they... Must launch the missiles immediately.
His image then disappeared completely. Dasal guessed that the satellite dish upon the center's roof had been destroyed by enemy fire. She was on her own. Never mind. Khan's orders were clear.
Dasal to mission control. Prepare to launch missiles.
Chen smashed her way through the control room door. She was the only member of Team Artemis left. Concealed lasers hidden in the ceiling just past the biohazard warning had taken out Rani before either of them had recognized the danger. Only quick shooting on Chen's part had saved the Amazon leader from a similar fate. Chen brandished the smoking muzzle of her Beretta before Dasal.
Dr. Pulan Dasal, you are a traitor to womankind and my prisoner.
Chen nodded at the gleaming steel cylinders on the other side of the clear glass window.
Is that your witch's brew, Doctor?
Dasal raised her chin defiantly, meeting Chen's scornful gaze with her own.
That's merely a representative sampling. The bulk of our output has already been loaded into exactly 235 bio-warheads aimed at every continent except Antarctica. You are too late, Amazon.
Chen felt fear clutching at her heart.
But I thought you were not yet ready. You were misinformed. Safe in their silos, the missiles are being fueled as we speak. You may kill me if you wish, but the will of the great Khan cannot be thwarted. You will live to see the common herd of humanity perish in approximately 3 days, by my calculations.
Chen now saw that a digital countdown was rapidly ticking down to completion, with less than 10 minutes to go. She knew there was no way her warriors could seize control of the missile silos in under 10 minutes. That left her with only one option available. With only the barest twinge of regret did she shoot Dasal twice in the head. She had never killed a woman before, least of all in cold blood, but these were extraordinary circumstances. She could not keep an eye on Dasal and still do what needed to be done. After kicking the door shut behind her, she hastily shed her bulging backpack and removed its fearsome contents. A portable nuclear device of Chen's own invention. The suitcase nuke would produce a 10-kiloton explosion, more than enough to destroy the missiles before they launched, and sterilize the entire island. Pressing a single button, she started the high-speed arming sequence. It was going to be close. 21 years ago, she recalled, somewhere beneath the sands of India's Great Tar Desert, the first chrysalis project had been consumed by a purifying thermonuclear conflagration. Now, it seemed, history was about to repeat itself. Chen's greatest regret was that Khan himself was not present to be incinerated with the rest of them.
Let us hope that our American partners deal with him.
The nuke beat the missiles with 3 minutes to spare. On the Isle of Arran, Gary Seven glanced out the window of the farmhouse. It was a cold and foggy day outside. A good day, in other words, for staying indoors and getting some thinking done. He was worried about the situation in Chechnya, not to mention the faltering Mideast peace process. Roberta entered his office bearing printouts of the day's newspapers.
Extra, get your red-hot headlines here. Any more fallout, Roberta, from the nuclear blast at Mururoa?
She smiled as her blue-green eyes scanned the headlines.
Fallout? No pun intended, I assume. Seriously, French President Chirac is still taking plenty of flack for, quote, resuming nuclear testing in the South Pacific, end quote. I'm still amazed that we managed to get the French government to go along with that cover story. But I guess it's better than admitting that they leased their facilities to a genetically engineered terrorist who almost destroyed the world.
Seven sighed as he recalled the enormous sacrifice made by Chen Tijun and her Amazons.
We should have never let matters get that far.
Roberta sat down in an upholstered wooden chair opposite Seven's desk.
Khan is a tough customer. This is twice now we've stopped someone from spreading that nasty flesh-eating bacteria. Not a bad track record.
Seven shrugged with sadness.
And all it's taken is 2 nuclear explosions. We won a costly battle at Mururoa, but not the war. And Morning Star, Roberta. Don't forget that.
Seven knew that as long as Morning Star remained in orbit, Earth's entire ozone layer remained at risk. Up until now, the world's superpowers had kept their hands off Chandigarh for fear of provoking Khan's wrath. But as news of the close call at Mururoa inevitably made its way through the intelligence networks of the United States, Russia, China, and their various allies, how much longer would it be before someone took the risky step of calling Khan's bluff? Seven sensed time running out, all the more so because he knew one thing that he feared the rest of the world didn't. Khan wasn't bluffing. Shannon O'Donnell applauded enthusiastically as Dr. Carlson uncorked a bottle of Chateau Picard and began filling everyone's glasses.
Toast! Toast!
Toast! Toast!
Blushing slightly, Carlson cleared his throat and raised his glass.
Lady and gentlemen, I give you the DY-100, the first true interstellar spacecraft.
Hear, hear!
Hear, hear!
Shannon sipped her wine, feeling a warm glow of accomplishment and camaraderie. To think, after all these years, slaving away in secret, the ship was finally ready. Too bad Helen couldn't be there, but aside from Carlson, the rest of the team remained unaware of the help they had received from the mysterious older woman. She was just stepping forward to help Carlson with the cake when, unexpectedly, the pen in the breast pocket of her lab coat vibrated against her chest.
Excuse me, guys, but I have to make a pit stop.
She hurried down the hall to the nearest ladies' room. Hiding out in a stall, Shannon pulled up the vibrating silver pen and held it to her lips.
Helen?
The voice of the woman Shannon knew only as Helen Swanson emerged from the pen.
I need to see you right away, Shannon. Meet me at S4 Launch Control.
S4? What in the world was Helen doing there? At least Shannon didn't have far to go. A high-speed underground monorail connected this part of Area 51 with the facility codenamed S4, a concealed hangar and launch pad built into a spiny mountain ridge overlooking a dry lake bed known as Papoose Lake. After passing the usual fingerprint and retina scans, Shannon took an empty elevator cage up to launch control. Gleaming brightly, the DY-100 rested upright upon the reinforced concrete launch pad. The sight still took Shannon's breath away. Too bad this whole project was still so hush-hush. She wanted to show the magnificent starship off to the entire world. Maybe someday, once all the secrecy was lifted, billions of television viewers would watch a DY-100 take off for the stars. Shannon exited the elevator cage right outside a door labeled S4 Launch Control. She slid her own key card into the lock and entered today's password. It was past 11 on Friday night. Launch control should have been completely deserted. But Helen Swanson lounged in one of the rolling bucket seats used by the launch technicians.
What's this all about, Helen? What are you doing here?
Helen grimaced as if reluctant to divulge the purpose of her visit.
I have a very big favor to ask you. I need the DY-100 tonight.
Shannon stared at Helen, hoping it was all part of some twisted practical joke.
You want the ship tonight?
Helen got up out of her chair and walked over toward Shannon.
Look, I know it's a lot to ask. No, it's more than a lot. It's insane. We're talking about a one-of-a-kind multi-billion-dollar spaceship, the result of decades of ultra-top-secret research and experimentation. I can't just loan it out like the keys to my old Subaru. Actually, Shannon, it wouldn't really be a loan. Once it leaves, it ain't coming back. I can't explain it all to you now, but the fate of the entire planet, of every living thing, depends on you helping me steal the DY-100 tonight.
Dire suspicions rushed into Shannon's mind.
How do I know this wasn't your plan all along? That you haven't been playing me all these years?
Helen fiddled with a paperweight, a crystalline green pyramid, as her eyes entreated Shannon.
It's not like I'll be completely snatching away all of your hard work and progress. You'll still have all the blueprints and diagrams and such. You can build a new sleeper ship. But that ship, out there, is needed elsewhere.
Shannon began to waver.
I don't know, Helen.
The blonde woman shrugged her shoulders.
Roberta. My name is Roberta Lincoln. I can't expect you to trust me this far, not unless I trust you too.
Oddly moved by this disclosure, Shannon gave an only slightly hysterical laugh.
What the hell? I've been a double agent for years now. Why not a starship rustler too?
Roberta grinned.
Congratulations. You're launch control. Come again, Roberta? One person can't do it alone.
Roberta gave Shannon a mischievous wink.
You can, with the right equipment.
She laid her crystal pyramid on top of the nearest computer console.
Get hopping.
At first, Shannon thought Roberta was addressing her. Then she realized the older woman was talking to her paperweight. To her amazement, the miniature pyramid, which was no bigger than a Rubik's Cube, suddenly emitted a cool emerald glow. A second later, all the consoles in the control room came alive at once.
Override protocols engaged. All relevant programs assimilated.
Roberta gave the crystal pyramid an affectionate pat and looked at Shannon.
All of your launch systems are now slaved into this little gal. Just tell her what to do and trust her to keep an eye on everything else. And, oh yeah, don't be annoyed if she gets a bit snippy with you. Artificial intelligences always seem to come with a touch of attitude.
Roberta went on to explain the rest of her plan. Then she left the launch gallery and headed down to the launch pad to begin ascending to the capsule at the top of the DY-100. A few minutes later, the intercom crackled to life.
All right, Shannon, I'm all strapped in. Let's get the show on the road.
Feeling faintly ridiculous, Shannon addressed the tiny green pyramid. Initiate pre-launch procedures?
Initiating pre-burn sequence. 1 minute to liftoff.
Suddenly, an irate voice blared over the PA system.
Attention, launch control. Cease unauthorized operations immediately. That's an order.
Shannon was startled but not too surprised by the warning, but there was no turning back now.
Attention, you are committing an act of high treason.
She looked at the pyramid. Kill the sound. The incensed voice fell silent. From the door to the control room, which Roberta had thoughtfully welded shut, came other angry voices.
Open up! Open! Open up!
The automated launch procedures would take the DY-100 beyond Earth's atmosphere before requiring further instructions from Roberta.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Before Shannon's awestruck eyes, the DY-100 lifted off its launch pad, ascending into the midnight sky atop an inverted geyser of flame and smoke. She just wished she knew really who was behind the wheel.
Open up! Open this door! Open!
There was only one more thing to do. She gave her final order to the pyramid. Initiate exit protocol. She braced herself for the tranquilizing energy blast that Roberta had sworn would not harm Shannon permanently. The pyramid would not be so lucky. It was programmed to self-destruct.
Acknowledged.
In the master control room of his fortress, Khan watched his world come apart on a dozen different video screens. Riots raged on the streets of Chandigarh as his troops battled hordes of angry demonstrators. If not for Chen and her accursed Amazons, his flesh-eating bacteria would have already rid the world of the puerile masses now ravening at his very door. Perhaps it was time to put the Earth out of its misery? In this control room were the targeting controls of his last and greatest weapon, Morning Star. Joaquin, once again his ever-present bodyguard, pointed to a series of monitors keeping watch over the luxurious grounds of the palace above. Special Force commandos in pitch-black night gear were parachuting into the fortress, immediately exchanging fire with what remained after weeks of resignations and desertions of Khan's palace guards. Khan found bleak solace in the tragic verses of the bard. You may my glories and my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those. An aide came running into the control room from the radar and tracking station outside. She clutched a crumpled printout in her hand. Lord Khan, we have confirmed reports of American B-52s en route from Pakistan. We believe they intend to bomb the fortress. Bombs and commandos both? It mattered little. The world would pay dearly for thwarting his destiny. Ament glided into the control room. Lord Khan, perhaps it is not too late to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the present crisis. Do not let your exalted reign end in nothing but fire and blood. Khan's eyes narrowed in disdain as he confronted his peace-loving Egyptian counselor. I should have known you would suggest as much. Out! Out! All of you! They all retreated from the chamber except Ament. Lady Ament, I desire solitude. Her gaze shifted knowingly from Khan to the control station for Morning Star. Khan smirked cruelly as he strode with confidence over to the computer governing Morning Star. Watch and learn, my lady. Morning Star, begin targeting sequence. Global targeting. Gomorrah scenario. This option was Morning Star's most apocalyptic. spelling the total destruction of Earth's entire ozone layer.
Target selected. Moving into Gamorra position.
Ament pleaded with him.
Khan, do not make the entire world suffer for your crushed ambitions.
He sneered at Ament with sardonic amusement.
Resign yourself to the facts, O Lady of little faith or fidelity. Within minutes, Morning Star will herald the beginning of the end for the corrupted, venal human race, and nothing you can say will dissuade me from this course.
A new voice interrupted.
Then perhaps you will listen to me.
Khan looked away from Ament in surprise as a lean old man in a dark suit strolled into the futuristic-looking chamber. Vaporous tendrils of blue plasma swirled about his ankles. Khan drew his P-226 and pointed the handgun at Gary 7. It had been a long time since Khan had actually beheld his one-time mentor in the flesh. 7's short, neatly trimmed hair was entirely silver now. His intellect and vitality, however, appeared undimmed by the passage of time.
The years have been kind to you, Mr. 7.
7's eyes grimly surveyed the humming, blinking hardware.
I regret, Khan, that we must conduct this reunion under such ominous circumstances.
8 minutes to Gamorra.
I confess I am curious about how you managed to get through my force field.
To his surprise, Ament supplied the explanation.
I lowered the shields, Khan.
Stung by her betrayal, he turned to berate her, but the elegant Egyptian woman was no longer there. In her place was a sleek black cat with gleaming amber eyes. The feline leaped into 7's arms.
Hello, doll. I've missed you, too.
Eyes and mouth agape, Khan stared at the cat in unalloyed astonishment. Had so fantastical a creature truly been working beside him, under his very nose, for all these years? 7 chided him.
For shame, Khan. The name Ament means hidden goddess, and is just one of many alternative names for the Egyptian goddess Isis. She's been hiding in plain sight for quite some time.
But I had thought her one of my own kind, another child of Chrysalis.
That's what you were meant to believe.
7 then regarded Morning Star on the display screen as the satellite blinked its way toward the Arctic Circle.
Now, Khan, I must prevent you from making one of the most calamitous mistakes in the history of the human race. What if I could offer you a better alternative, a more attractive destiny?
7 lifted his servo from the countertop and aimed it at the stacked video screens. The disparate scenes of chaos and conflict were replaced by a single image. A cylindrical space vessel drifting in orbit somewhere high above the Earth. 7 offered an introduction.
The DY-100, until recently a top-secret creation of the United States of America, but now available to you under certain conditions. Are you familiar with the concept of a sleeper ship?
Khan nodded.
But do you mean to say that such a vessel actually exists?
7 indicated the radar and tracking station just outside.
You can certainly verify the ship's presence overhead. For the sake of argument, consider this. What if I gave you the DY-100 in exchange for your promise to leave Earth's ozone layer intact?
1 minute to Gamorra.
You have a choice, Khan. You can go down in flames, taking the entire world with you, or you and your people can make a new life for yourselves somewhere beyond this solar system. You could be a new Columbus, found a new dynasty light years from Earth.
Khan did not know what to think.
Your proposal is intriguing, but I am unsure.
30 seconds to Gamorra.
Choose wisely, Khan.
Khan considered his alternatives. What truly did he have to lose, save for the malignant pleasures of revenge? Morning Star, halt targeting sequence, terminate Gamora scenario, command authorization Caesar 44 BC. He walked away from the satellite controls. His wary eyes promised immediate retribution should Seven prove to be deceiving him. Tell me more about this ship, Mr. Seven. The following day, Khan was standing on the hibernation deck of the DY-100 with Gary Seven, Roberta Lincoln, the cat Isis, or Ament, and his bodyguard Joaquin. The ship was all Seven had promised, a marvel of futuristic technology and design. Blue steel bulkheads constructed of a durable alloy that Khan did not immediately recognize offered sturdy protection from the airless void outside, so that the dreams of the ship's slumbering passengers would not be troubled by fears of structural collapse or minor meteorite collisions. With Khan's consent, Seven had transported the cream of Khan's followers, some 82 other supermen and women, aboard the orbiting starship. They were now sleeping in the available hibernation niches, except for 2 additional niches that were waiting for Khan and Joaquin. Roberta Lincoln addressed Khan. The ship still needs a name. Any thoughts? Khan thought it should be something appropriate. He wandered over to the primary computer station. According to the navigational scanner, the unchristened ship was currently orbiting the Earth over 1,000 kilometers above the continent of Australia. A landing monitor showed him the magnified contours of the Gold Coast and Botany Bay. The latter was the site of Australia's first European settlement, a British penal colony peopled by transported convicts. That eventually led to the conquest of the entire continent. An omen of sorts? Khan informed Roberta of his decision. The SS Botany Bay, a name foretelling both struggle and triumph. Gary Seven joined Khan by the computer station. I have programmed the ship to carry you and your people to an uninhabited solar system roughly 100 light-years from Earth. At full impulse power, just below light speed, the journey should take a little over a century while all of you remain in a state of suspended animation. Khan did not bother asking Seven how he knew this solar system to be uninhabited. What was one more mystery amidst the constellation of enigmas surrounding the shadowy older man and his secrets? Khan inspected once more the intricate garment constructed of fine golden mesh that Seven had provided Khan and his fellow emigrants. According to Seven, the delicate fibers were designed to monitor the passengers' vital functions as they slept. Seven then reminded Khan, "It is time to complete your side of the bargain. The self-destruct codes for Morning Star?" Khan nodded in assent and stepped to the terminal. Aghast, Joaquin cried out to Khan before he could finish inputting the final self-destruct code.
No, Your Excellency. Do not cooperate with these saboteurs and traitors. We should seize control of this vessel and return to Earth.
Return, Joaquin? To a planet that fervently wishes us dead and buried? Accept my wisdom in this. With the press of a button, Khan sent the coded transmission that ended the threat of Morning Star forever. Roberta snatched up Joaquin's golden outfit and thrust the wad of glittering fabric at the bodyguard's brawny chest. Hurry up, Joaquin, get dressed for Betty Bye. Foolishly, Roberta turned her back on Joaquin as she walked beneath a metal archway towards Seven. Khan watched with interest as Joaquin drew forth the serrated throwing knife concealed in his ursine belt buckle. Gary Seven, preoccupied with monitoring Morning Star's disintegration, did not notice Joaquin raising his knife to throw it straight at the unsuspecting woman's back. Roberta, beware! One moment, an alert black cat sat curled atop a comfortably heated conduit. The next, a glamorous, dark-haired woman threw herself between Roberta and her would-be assassin. Snarling, Joaquin hurled his knife anyway. The blade flashed across the deck of the starship, lodging between the Catwoman's breasts. Roberta had spun and stunned Joaquin with her servo, but it was too late for Ament, who crumpled to the floor. Seven and Roberta both rushed to their companion's side. Ament looked up at them both and purred her last words.
What? Not curiosity, after all?
A heartbeat later, the still form of a small black cat lay lifelessly upon the floor of the hibernation deck. Seven yanked the killing blade free from the cat's remains. He then smashed the knife against the steel floor.
I'm sorry, doll. You deserved so much better than this.
Seven's blazing eyes focused on Joaquin, now slumping against one of the ship's bulkheads. Khan was curious to see whether Seven would compromise his vaunted principles long enough to exact bloody vengeance on the insensate bodyguard.
Joaquin's life, of course, is yours, Mr. Seven.
Seven vented his rage at Khan.
Damn you! Does no one's life mean anything to you?
Khan looked coldly at the feline corpse upon the floor.
Do not expect me to mourn one who betrayed me. But no matter. Let us conclude this transaction with all deliberate speed.
If nothing else, Seven and Roberta were now understandably anxious to depart the Botany Bay, so the final arrangements were conducted swiftly and with little discussion. Khan himself prepped Joaquin for hibernation and single-handedly installed the massive bodyguard within his niche. Then, without ceremony or trepidation, Khan climbed onto the slab-sized metal shelf protruding from the bottom of his own niche. Hidden conveyors retracted the shelf, drawing Khan into the waiting cavity. Seven addressed him from just outside the niche.
Farewell, Khan Noonien Singh. May you make better use of your second life.
Khan sneered in reply. He had no regrets about abandoning the world which had rejected him. Even with Morning Star destroyed, he doubted that the planet Earth would survive long without him. Inferior humanity would surely destroy themselves of their own accord, without his having to raise a hand. My curse upon them all. Frigid gases filled the niche. As his thoughts slowed, he recalled the immortal words of Tennyson's Ulysses.
"'Tis not too late to seek a newer world, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield."
In Area 51, a somber Jeffrey Carlson let Shannon O'Donnell into his office, then closed the door behind her.
Before I inform you of the final decision resulting from our investigation, I feel obliged to ask you one last time. Are you still standing by your original story that you were the victim of insidious alien mind control?
Shannon nodded, feeling bad about lying to Doc Carlson of all people.
It's the only explanation that makes sense. The last thing I remember is being in the conference room with the rest of you, then suddenly feeling the irresistible psychic compulsion to go to the launch bay. After that, everything is a blank. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the infirmary.
Taking a deep breath, Carlson launched reluctantly into the disciplinary phase of the meeting.
As of this moment, all of your security clearances are officially revoked. You are no longer employed at this base, and your career at NASA is over as well.
Dr. Carlson, I want you to know that I appreciate everything you've done on my behalf, both before and after the incident.
She stood up and headed toward the door when Carlson rose and called after her.
Shannon, wait. There's something else I want to say off the record. How do you think the Roswell aliens escaped in the first place?
Shannon's eyes widened.
You?
He grinned.
So don't give me that old alien mind control alibi. I invented it. Or, to be more exact, my wife did.
Two weeks later on the Isle of Arran, in the old farmhouse, Gary Seven stood in front of the open transporter vault while Roberta talked with him.
You realize, of course, that we've unleashed Khan on the rest of the universe? Roberta, the universe has survived worse than Khan. Earth might not have been so lucky.
Roberta felt herself getting misty-eyed.
So, you're really going?
Seven nodded.
It's time. My aging musculature would prefer a lower gravity environment, and to be honest, a change will help me get over the pain of Isis's death.
Roberta wiped her eyes.
But how am I supposed to police this entire planet by myself?
A cryptic smile appeared on Seven's crinkly face.
Arrangements have been made.
As if on cue, a cloud of glowing blue plasma materialized within the vault, and an unexpected visitor came padding out of the vault on all fours. A fluffy orange Persian cat with yellow eyes and an adorable pushed-in face.
Roberta Lincoln, meet Ramses. He is your new partner. Ramses is a tomcat.
Roberta arched her eyebrow, thinking this could be interesting. First, however, she got up from behind the desk and gave Seven a heartfelt hug.
Don't be a stranger. Remember, I'm always a subspace call away. Roberta, I want you to know just how proud I am of everything we've accomplished together over the years. You're living proof that the human race is worth preserving, and that you don't need genetic engineering or selective breeding to produce a superior human being.
On that note, he picked up his bags and, smiling back at her over his shoulder, stepped into the same roiling blue plasma. As she watched his familiar figure disappear into the mist, the knock at the front door of the farmhouse took Roberta by surprise. Hastily closing the transporter vault, she scurried down the stairs. There, upon her threshold, was a slim, dark-haired young woman whom Roberta had never seen before.
Oh, thank goodness. Someone's home. Listen, please don't think I'm crazy, but I gotta talk to you. My name is Rain Robinson, and I'm with SETI, you know, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Anyway, I was manning the radio telescope at Griffith Observatory a couple of weeks ago when I spotted some sort of bizarre spacecraft, like nothing I'd ever seen before, in orbit above the Earth. Now, officially, according to NASA and all, there was nothing up there, but I tracked it for hours, and then I detected a strange kind of concentrated energy burst, sort of like a cross between a laser beam and a radio wave zapping from the ship to Earth. And you want to know where that beam ended up? According to my calculations, right here. This island, this house, right in the middle of nowhere. No offense.
Dangly white earrings rocked back and forth as Rain practically bounced up and down upon Roberta's doorstep. She then asked the question she had come to ask.
So, you want to explain to me why an advanced spacecraft of unknown origin is beaming down some sort of transmission to a quaint little cottage on an island that's primarily inhabited, as far as I can tell, by loads of freaking sheep?
She looked expectantly at Roberta, who didn't know whether to be appalled or impressed. Clearly, the eager young astronomer had spied the Botany Bay during its brief stay in orbit. What's worse, she had even picked up on Roberta and Seven transporting home right before the hijacked sleeper ship took off for parts unknown. Pretty good detective work. In some ways, Rain reminded her of another excitable young woman, a wide-eyed hippie chick who had once found a job as a secretary for a small New York firm specializing in encyclopedia research. So, Rain Robinson, you interested in saving the world?
Captain's log, stardate 7004.2. First Officer Spock reporting. While Captain Kirk and the landing party remain on the planet's surface dealing with the crisis at the Paragon colony, we are continuing to monitor the Klingon battlecruiser now orbiting Sycorax. Given the potential threat posed by the Klingon vessel, the Enterprise is on yellow alert. Ensign Chekhov looked up and exclaimed from Spock's own science station,
"Mr. Spock, the Klingon ship is targeting the colony."
Seated in the captain's chair, Spock swiftly reacted. "Mr. Sulu, an intercept course with all deliberate speed. All decks, condition red." As the Enterprise closed on the Klingon vessel, Spock addressed the ship's communications officer. "Lieutenant Uhura, hail the Klingon vessel." The bridge of the Imperial Klingon ship Groth was musky with the scent of impending battle. Koloth stroked his goatee thoughtfully. It was regrettable that he would have to destroy the colony now, but he could not risk letting Paragon's genetic expertise fall into the hands of the Empire's enemies.
Prepare to fire.
Set at maximum power, the battlecruiser's powerful phase disruptor cannons would make short work of the colony's protective dome. Lieutenant Karad shouted from the auxiliary tactical station.
"Captain, the Earth ship is moving to block our cannons."
Koloth scowled. Captain Kirk and his crew were not making his mission any easier. He had hoped that the photon grenade his first officer Korax had planted at the Paragon's primary array of force field projectors would be enough to terminate the colony's existence, but sensors indicated that Kirk and the colonists had somehow managed to keep the dome intact despite the sabotage. Now, here was the Enterprise complicating matters once again. Suddenly, his communications chief called out from his station behind and above the command chair.
"Captain, the humans are hailing us."
The face of Kirk's Vulcan first officer appeared on the main viewer, confirming Koloth's assumption that Captain Kirk was still on the planet's surface. "This is First Officer Spock, currently in command of the USS Enterprise. We have observed your attempt to target the human colony on Sycorax and urge you strongly to reconsider. We are prepared to defend the colony if necessary." But Koloth knew that ultimately there was only one way to find out if the Vulcan was bluffing. He manually cut off the communications link between the two ships.
"Lock cannons on Enterprise. Fire!"
As bursts of brilliant green disruptor fire exploded against the Enterprise's raised deflector screens, on the bridge, Spock calmly took firmer hold of the arms of the command chair. "Return fire." As phasers clashed with disruptors, Spock coolly assessed the tactical situation. The Enterprise was handicapped by having to defend the colony as well as itself. Spock's computer-like mind quickly considered and discarded dozens of possible strategies. It was while reviewing the successful battle tactics of Earth's pre-unified past that a promising idea occurred to him. He rose and asked a crewman to step aside from the weapons controls. It would be faster and more effective to work the controls himself. He rapidly reprogrammed the phaser controls to vary the intensity and protonic frequency of the phaser bursts, then pressed the firing controls. On the view screen, the incandescent phasers flashed at high speed along an entire spectrum of colors, producing a prismatic strobe effect that left Ensign Chekhov blinking in confusion.
"Mr. Spock, are the phasers supposed to be doing that?"
"Affirmative, Ensign. With their deflectors on full, the Klingon sensor arrays can only scan along a narrow range of the electromagnetic spectrum. We lack the sheer phaser power to overwhelm their shields, but I theorized that it might be possible to use the phasers to disorient their remaining sensors." Spock had remembered that during Earth's Second World War,
Allied forces defending the Suez Canal from German Luftwaffe bombers fit ordinary searchlights with tin reflectors, then engineered the lights so that they would spin rapidly, projecting cartwheels of light into the night sky that effectively dazzled the German pilots, rendering them unable to keep the canal in their bomb sights. The ploy was successful, and the canal had been kept safe. So Spock had proceeded to adapt the same technique to modern technology. One minute, the main viewer on Koloth's bridge had the Enterprise directly in its sights. The next, a flashing kaleidoscopic display of lights and colors usurped the screen, offering Koloth no view at all of the ongoing battle. At the Chief Tactical Station, Lieutenant Mack frantically worked the sensor controls, trying to restore the image on the screen. At the same time, other crewmen were shouting status reports.
Targeting sensors inoperative. We've lost our lock on the Enterprise. Navigational sensors inoperative. We're flying blind.
The Groth's bridge trembled like a frightened tard. Sparks flared from the tactical console, and Koloth's heart sank. He knew the impact of a photon torpedo when he felt one. On the Enterprise bridge, Spock relinquished the weapons controls and returned to the captain's chair. The injured Klingon battlecruiser lurched awkwardly across the screen. Spock was gratified to note extensive damage along the entire length of the ship. Then he gave his orders. Phasers at maximum. Target their sensor arrays and shield emitters, taking care not to hit their warp engines. We want to give the Klingons the opportunity to escape. After the beams assailed the Klingon vessel, Lieutenant Uhura reported from her station. Captain Koloth is hailing you, sir. Koloth's overly familiar visage appeared upon the view screen. On the Klingon's bridge, flames licked the surface of the control consoles. Spock here. How can I help you, Captain? A mirthless smile tweaked the corners of Koloth's lips.
You could never have been born. Be that as it may, I applaud your ingenuity, Vulcan. Please extend my compliments to Captain Kirk on his excellent choice of first officer. But be warned that the Klingon Empire will never tolerate any alliance between the Federation and the Paragon colony.
Spock watched thoughtfully as the wounded battlecruiser warped out of sight, leaving only subspace ripples behind. Contact the captain, Lieutenant Uhura. Inform him that the Klingons have departed. Captain's log, stardate 7004.2. The Klingons have departed for now. With the Paragon colony's force field and protective dome repaired, the immediate crisis appears to have passed, with the only casualty being the Columbus II, which did not survive its prolonged encounter with the planet's deadly atmosphere. Thankfully, Lieutenant Lerner and I managed to avoid the shuttle's fate by successfully beaming into the colony through the temporary gap in its force field. Still, my original mission remains. Should I recommend Sycorax for membership in the Federation, despite or because of its expertise at human genetic engineering? As I conclude my historical survey of the Eugenics Wars, I confess that my mind is far from certain on the matter. Kirk clicked off the computer terminal that the colony had thoughtfully provided him with, finished at last with the comprehensive data files he had brought with him from the Enterprise. He leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms behind his head. Thanks to a shower and a clean uniform, he was none the worse for wear after his harrowing shuttle flight earlier that day, although he was aware that things could have easily turned out very differently. Dr. McCoy sat in a comfy, easy chair in the northwest corner of the Paragon Colony's deluxe VIP suite. A dog-eared medical journal rested upon the lap of the Enterprise's chief medical officer, who had graciously volunteered to sit up with Kirk while the captain prepared for his final meeting with Masako Clark and her advisors tomorrow morning.
Well, Jim, made up your mind yet? I just don't know, Bones. Khan's infamous career, not to mention our own nearly fatal run-in with him, make a strong argument against genetic supermen. But what about Gary 7, who stands as a compelling example of an enhanced human being who accomplished a great deal of good? And is it fair to punish the Paragon colonists for the sins of a previous generation of superhumans? Jim, I wouldn't be so quick to take these folks entirely off the hook. True, they're not the monsters Khan was, but they got a bit of the same attitude when it comes to us lowly, inferior human beings. You and I have both felt it. Who's to say they wouldn't get even more overbearing and perhaps even dangerous once they're accepted into the Federation?
A scary thought, Kirk conceded, as his thoughts turned back toward the eugenics wars.
The question is, what made Khan a monster? His DNA or his times? Remember, Khan was a product of both genetic engineering and 20th century barbarism. That was 300 years ago. Perhaps our civilization has evolved to the point where we can absorb these sort of superhumans into our society without all the wrenching turmoil Earth went through in the 1990s.
McCoy shook his head uneasily.
300 years or not, I don't believe we're ready for that kind of power. Well, you might as well get some sleep, Bones. I suspect I'm going to be burning the midnight oil on this one.
McCoy rose slowly from the easy chair.
Well, far be it for me to ignore sound medical advice. But do yourself a favor, Jim. Don't let this eat you up inside. You've already saved the universe from Khan once. You don't have to do it again.
After McCoy exited the room, a pregnant silence fell over the suite as Kirk wrestled with the thorny issues presented by the Paragon colony and its inhabitants. Masako Clark was expecting his answer in the morning, knowing that whatever Kirk recommended would likely determine the Federation's policy toward the colony. Was it possible to condone human genetic engineering without risking another round of eugenics wars?
Captain Kirk?
A surprising voice interrupted his thoughts. Kirk reached for his phaser, resting on a carved wooden end table next to the couch, before he recognized the stranger stepping through the open doorway of the adjacent bedroom. He lowered his phaser. Gary 7 looked much older than Kirk remembered.
Mr. 7, to what do I owe the privilege of this unexpected visitation? Time travel or extreme longevity? A little bit of both, Captain. Do you mind if I sit down? By all means. I was just reading about some of your experiences during the eugenics wars. My condolences regarding your cat. Thank you, Captain. That was some time ago, objectively and subjectively.
Kirk felt a headache coming on, so he made an effort to overlook any and all temporal paradoxes for the time being.
I take it this visit is no coincidence?
7 looked over at Kirk with a concerned expression.
Hardly, Captain. I am aware of Sycorax's petition to join the Federation, with all its troubling implications, and thought that you might welcome another perspective on the subject from someone who lived through the worst of the eugenics wars. Despite all the truly commendable progress humanity has made since the 1990s, we are not yet ready to take our genetic destiny into our own hands. I need more than that, Mr. 7. I need an explanation, not just a blanket statement. Give me a reason to believe you.
7's eyes were full of hard-won experience.
The greatest danger of eugenics, Captain, is not the enhanced abilities of people like Khan. It's the assumption that those enhancements somehow make certain people intrinsically superior to others on the most fundamental level conceivable. Once you accept that assumption, that certain people are intrinsically more advanced than others, then you end up with megalomaniacs at one end of the spectrum and dangerously frightened people at the other. Look at what Khan became. Eugenics programs, no matter how well-intentioned, invariably become just another way of turning us against them. When you talk about DNA, Captain, you're provoking a very powerful emotional response, one that hits people at the very core of their identities, no matter how civilized they might otherwise be, even in the enlightened world of the 23rd century.
Part of Kirk wanted to agree with Seven, to have a good excuse for forever banning the technology that created Khan. But another part, less fearful, more optimistic, felt compelled to defend the people of his own era.
I'm not sure I accept your premise that modern humans would react the same way people did back in the 1990s. You may be underestimating us, just like Khan did. Give me one good reason why human genetic engineering would be a terrible mistake.
Seven leaned forward, as if to stress his point.
Because what truly matters can't be found in the genes. Superior strength, superior intelligence, these are all useful traits, but in the end, they don't necessarily make superior people. Character, compassion, courage, those are learned qualities, not encoded on any chromosome, but ultimately they are what will truly advance the human race.
Seven's gray eyes turned inward as he looked back across the gulf of time.
Khan thought that he was more than human, but over the years, his arrogance and lack of empathy ate away at his humanity, turning him into the monster you encountered. Roberta Lincoln, Shannon O'Donnell, those were the truly superior humans, and what made them special did not come out of a test tube.
The captain nodded, paying close attention to Seven's words and the obvious passion behind them.
And what about the Klingons?
Seven sighed wearily.
For better or for worse, I suspect the essence of the Klingon soul will remain the same no matter what genetic bells and whistles they may or may not add to their DNA. In any event, don't let an unreasoning fear of the Klingons or any other alien adversaries scare mankind away from its own humanity. Thank you, Mr. Seven. You've given me a lot to think about.
Kirk helped the older man out of the easy chair, then watched as Seven walked back toward the open doorway, where a shimmering cloud of blue plasma awaited him.
Good luck tomorrow, Captain. I know you'll make the right decision. And if I don't?
Gary Seven just smiled, and he stepped into the fog. The next day in Masako Clark's office, Kirk wasted no time informing the Regent of his decision.
The good news is that I intend to strongly recommend that the Federation place the Paragon colony under Starfleet protection, thus deterring any further assaults by the Klingons and other hostile parties. Starfleet engineers can help you upgrade your planetary defenses, and we may even decide to establish a military outpost in orbit around Sycorax, enforcing the quarantine.
Quarantine, Captain?
Yes, Madam Regent. Beyond the protection I spoke of, I am also advising the Federation to have nothing more to do with the Paragon colony. Full membership in the Federation will be denied, the planet declared off-limits, and the ban on human genetic engineering will remain intact.
McCoy and Lerner waited at the back of the room, ready to accompany Kirk to the shuttle that would return them to the Enterprise. Kirk suspected that McCoy was considerably relieved and gratified by his decision, just as Gary Seven would be, wherever and whenever he was now.
I'm sorry, Regent Clark. I wish you and your colony continued health and prosperity, but after much consideration of the past, the present, and the future, I do not believe that it is in the Federation's best interests to re-embark on a perilous course that once nearly destroyed humanity. The Romulans and the Klingons are a serious threat, yes, but even more dangerous than alien competitors is the possibility of a second eugenics war.
Never again, Kirk vowed. He fervently hoped that the foreboding specter of Khan Noonien Singh had been laid to rest at last.
Star Trek, The Eugenics Wars Volume 2, The Rise and Fall of Khan Noonien Singh, was written by Greg Cox and read by Renee Aubergenois. It was abridged for audio by George Truitt. The recording engineer was Jeff Thomas at Wild Oaks, with editing by Stephen Strassman and post-production and sound design by Gary Fink. The computer voice was read by Deborah Gregory. Original music was composed by Eve Beglarian, Carl Schurtz, Carl Sharif, Richard Emmett, Sam McCallie, and Rick Bradley. The associate producer was Jessica Cassidy. Star Trek, The Eugenics Wars Volume 2, The Rise and Fall of Khan Noonien Singh, was produced and directed by Linda Ross of One Louder. This has been a presentation of Simon & Schuster Audio. Also available from Simon & Schuster Audio, Star Trek, The Eugenics Wars Volume 1, and Star Trek The Next Generation, The Genesis Wave, Book 3. Star Trek, The Eugenics Wars Volume 2, The Rise and Fall of Khan Noonien Singh is also available in book form from Pocket Books.